Rolling. Oh, you did the same thing. The other day, someone double clapped my clap. Who was it? It was it's Frank Pellegrino. Double clapped my clap. We had another Pellegrino on the podcast.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you got two Pellegrinos, they both got to clap. I think that's part of the rule.
You got to double clap it. This is so meta and weird right now. I'm like looking around me, and it's like we were talking before. It's like this is. By the way, this is McClain Portis of Live2.
We're starting.
Oh yeah, we started.
Yeah, all right.
I started. That was the clap.
And we're good to drink this publicly on.
Yeah,
the show.
we're of age. We're of age. No, yeah, this is so weird and so meta though. To me, it's like you guys do things out of here. Like, well, I shouldn't say you guys. I'm a big part of it. Mm-hmm. But like, Live2 does stuff out of here. Like, that is a new thing. Above the Bridge has done stuff out of here for like a year now, and now it's like these two worlds colliding, and it's like we're here talking, and it's strange, you know?
Yeah.
And I think about like, I took like the first phone call we ever had at that chair right there. So just a weird full circle moment.
How long ago did we determine that was? Like 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think it was 6 months ago.
That's crazy.
Which is wild to think about. We were like after the boat thing. Mm-hmm. I remember we were like sitting in your car, and we were like, "Holy shit!" Like we only know each other for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I do feel like to begin here, I should give like a little bit of context.
Sure.
As to, like people who like aren't fully keen to like where Above the Bridge and Live2 and Dante Pellegrino and McClain Portis collide. So I work for Live2, and I have for what, like,
we'll say 3 months,
3-4 months, something like that. But yeah, there's the explanation. I guess that was all I really had to explain. But it is weird because we I feel like we talk on the phone like an hour a day, like, and we talk every single day at the very least. So it's like we're very, very connected in terms of what we do. So it's like talking to you on a podcast setting is very, very, very strange. It's also weird because the first thing I really got into with Live2, or one of the first things, was the podcast you guys did. So it's like a very, very, very weird like intersection of all these things. But essentially how I want to structure this, because I feel like this is going to go a very, very long time, but how I want to structure this in the name of like both longevity and organization is I do think I just want to have you, for the first part, tell the long extended story of Live2, and I assume that as you do that, there will be moments where I will chime in, and then there will be a tangent conversation, and then we can return to that stage that was set originally. But I think that for people who watch this podcast, and for myself, even I've heard the whole thing, but I think to rehear it and then chime in spots where I think I have good places to interject would be a very productive way to structure this conversation.
Yeah, I agree, because the story we both resonate with so much because there's so many parallels that we'll definitely have jumping off points for conversations.
And I mean, that was another thing where I think I should lay out there. It's like we connected so quickly over the fact that like I've been running a media company for 5 years. He's been running a media company for 5 years and a production company. And it's like very similar. The way in which we view these things and how we want to move is very similar. Yeah. So that's kind of how we connected in the first place. But with that being said, the story of Live2.
The story of Live2. Nice. Man, I wonder if I can probably tell a much fuller version than, I think you've gotten it in bits and pieces, because probably the first time I told you it was like the 40-minute version or so.
Yeah, well, I got the 40-minute version when we first met like 6 months ago. Yeah. And then I've got a ton of bits and pieces on like a daily basis since then. And then I got a bit longer, well, probably like close to the 40-minute version with David a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually
Shouts to Naveed.
That 40-minute version is still like the speed run version, I feel like.
That's still the speed run?
Yeah. I'm so used to giving that version that the deeper one is gonna take me a little bit of time to pull up. But yeah, I guess I'll start from, I don't know. I guess I'll start from when I was a kid and like the reason I think that it kind of came about. Because music, as we've talked about, was not something that was like huge in my life as a kid. Like my parents didn't listen to music really. Like in our car drives, they wouldn't play the radio. Like we would just talk. So it's a very roundabout way of falling into the position naturally of what we've been doing now for 5 years. And like the thing I've been passionate about from the beginning, I hesitate to call it like entrepreneurship, but it definitely comes from like a very like a similar place, but the driving force is not to make money. It's never been like about making money. It's always been about doing stuff that that makes people stop and stare and be like, wow, somebody actually like did that.
Was there a point where you realized that those people are the only people that make significant money in this often? Or do you even agree with that? Because I think I agree that it's very difficult to do something out of purely monetary gain. Like the only motive is monetary gain for like an extended period of time and remain passionate about enough to actually get to the point where you're making significant money.
Right. I mean, I think that there are people that are somehow passionate about like making money.
Yeah.
And I think that those people can like, for the most part, will set up things that can make significant revenue. But I think that the way to create like legacy is not by making something that's built to make money.
No.
But I guess the first thing that I did, I was probably 8 or so years old. My dad owns like a franchise of restaurants in Tennessee, and he just had in our attic like this leftover candy machine that he used to have in his old office. And I saw it when I was 8 and becoming cognizant as a human being. And something clicked inside of me of like, it would be so sick to put that in a restaurant and have like real people standing in line stop and put a quarter in that. And like, just, I don't know. I was just obsessed. I become extremely obsessed with whatever idea I'm working on, like to the point of like not being able to like sleep. I'm just so excited about doing that thing.
And I think, and it's interesting because this is something we've talked about a lot too. I think that is a blessing that's often disguised as a curse, and a curse that's often disguised as a blessing. It's a very strange like dichotomy where it's like that is simultaneously like what keeps us afloat and keeps us happy, and like it's the reason we wake up in the morning. Yeah. I think the same can be said for most entrepreneurs, but simultaneously it's like that sometimes paves way to the unhealthy habits that like begin to be like the root of even more unhealthy habits that begin to like spiral out of control very quickly. Yeah.
Like having that mentality at the core of who you are without having the right like tools in place to know how to deal with it, I think becomes, especially in the earliest days where like you don't know how to get people to care about it and it feels like it might die inside of you, and it's like this kind of desperation that you feel is a very tough thing. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm 8 years old, and I put these candy machines in my dad's restaurants and would go to Sam's Club, which is like a Costco type thing. I don't know if it's a big
Sam's
chain.
Club.
Okay, nice. I think it's a pretty big chain.
It's like Costco.
Yeah. And we'd buy candy in bulk like once a month, and I would go in every week and restock this candy machine. And my dad showed me how to run like a little profits and losses like spreadsheet when I was 8.
What are the losses on a candy machine?
Well, just like learning, how much profit you would get if you sold out of everything, how long it took before the candy that you had stocked up becomes stale, like having to filter it out, all that kind of stuff. And what's funny is,
wow, what a good way to explain that. What a good dad. That's so cool.
And I mean, I was just so obsessed with it. And like, I remember being obsessed with the idea of like, how do I know how much money to keep for myself and how much to like put back into the business? And it's funny because now that like Live2 is all for the last 5 years been about like building the culture, building the brand, like putting everything that we have back into it. It's like that candy machine thing technically has made more profit than Live2 ever has.
Dude, that's crazy you say that because I sold candy in high school.
No way.
Like, but in a different way. I would go to Sam's Club or Costco and I would just buy boxes of candy. I'd buy Swedish Fish and I'd buy Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah.
Because they were all like the cheapest and the easiest to sell.
Out of your locker at school.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I'd pedal out of my locker at school. And anybody who was to high school could attest to this. Yeah. I would bring around these big boxes because you'd buy, when you bought them in bulk, you'd buy like a big box and then it would have like 30 boxes in it.
Yeah.
And I'd buy them and I averaged it out to where I was getting each one for like 75 cents and I was flipping it for like $2. So I was scamming these kids. But like very similarly, that made me way more money right now than Above the Bridge has in turn, which is funny to think about. But
yeah, I had that realization like because you told me that this was kind of going to be the story that we were going to be telling on here, and so I was like, where am I going to even start? And I was like, I'll start with that, and I had the realization, wow, I've made more money doing that than I have this.
Crazy to think about.
But anyways, so that was the first thing. And then over the years, I would kind of like, you know, if Live2 is here in the center and the candy machine thing is all the way over here, I feel like every time I would bounce to a new idea, it would be like slightly closer to that like thing that ended up really sticking and lasting for multiple years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like that was the archetype. Live2 is the, you know, the closest realization of that, but it's like each thing in between was a step closer to Live2. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so after that, after the candy machine thing, I started I became obsessed with metal detecting and gold panning because I've always had this obsession with finding things that are like hidden in the dirt, like the diamond in the rough, basically.
Yeah.
I was watching YouTube videos about guys in Chicago in Lake Michigan or whatever it is, like finding gold rings and stuff. I was obsessed with it for like 2 years, and you know, I was like a big part of that kind of, and I'm trying to debate if I want to get into this yet. I guess I'll save it for a little bit. But yeah, I would do that all the time, and that's when I really started to realize that I have this through the passion that I feel for things, I'm able to, like, I'll just be working so hard on something and so passionate about it and just be talking about it to people, and all of a sudden I'll look up and there's like 4 people around me who are like equally, like they're stoked because I'm stoked, and they're there. Like my friends didn't make fun of me for metal detecting when I was in 7th and 8th grade. They were like, this is super sick. Like, you're having so much fun with it. I want to come have fun, do that. And so I think that was the first thing where I didn't really realize it yet at the time, but now looking back, I think that has carried over throughout everything after that. Because
100%.
The next thing that I moved to...
Dude, there's this thing about you, and I don't know what it is, not to gas you up too much too early, but like, there is this thing about you where it's like you just are an easy person to root for, like an easy person to believe in. And I think it's because you don't ask for a lot, ever, really. And like you always do so much, so it's like it's like a very natural born leader quality. But there's something about you that just makes it very easy to believe in what you're doing. I don't know exactly; it's hard to quantify, but
I appreciate that. That's cool. Yeah, that means a lot. And so yeah, it went from there. I started getting my friends involved in stuff, and then as it goes for a lot of us, I think. I found my dad's camera, and I think around that time, maybe 2015 or so, I had made like one YouTube video in 2011, 2012 or something like that, but I kind of like fallen off of that. But around that time, I'd started watching more YouTube stuff, picked up my dad's camera, and I was just becoming obsessed with this idea that as the YouTube space was maturing and I was watching kind of what was happening to those people, just subconsciously realizing that people, like kids out of their bedrooms, could create anything that they wanted to if they did it in the right way and told the right stories. And so I started picking up a camera and just trying anything I could with that. And over the course of the high school, I didn't really find the thing I wanted to do with that yet. It started as a trick shot YouTube channel, which a lot of those videos are still on my personal YouTube channel if you can find it.
Talk about the boogie board, jet board war.
Yeah, yeah. It was over the course of 2 years. This is the second thing that my friends got really, really involved in, and like around high school, I was literally. For the first 2 years, I was known as the kid that made these videos.
That's
and like
crazy.
That was my entire identity to like anybody that didn't know me.
So there's people who knew you in high school who could watch this video and think like, oh, McClain, like the trick shotting guy.
Yeah, like I had this very local community of people that thought it was sick. And like, I was a freshman in high school, and the seniors, like, I think it would sometimes on the outskirts get to the point where people could possibly make fun of me, but because I had such a strong core of like friends around me that thought it was super sick and were so about it, it like kind of created this bubble that like expanded to those other people and stuff. So like it became like a very positive community around.
And that is always I mean that is true with all big ideas. I think about this a lot. At a certain point, and this sounds corny, but at a certain point you literally do stop thinking about the potential there's people making fun of you because you know people find it cool. Yeah. Like the idea that like there is some kid who went to my high school that's making fun of Above the Bridge right now, it makes me laugh. Like I don't care. Like it's like freeing to say that because there was a period of time in which I did care so much, but it's like now like I wholeheartedly mean this, could not care less. Because it's just like you get to the point where it's like you're so battle-hearted by like all the losses and all the failure and everything that you've tried that you know that you believe in this so much to the fullest that other people should too, you know? Yeah.
I think it's like, I think that delusion and that obsession with the thing is like that protective bubble that accidentally forms around people like us, because it's like, if anybody was making fun of it, my first thought was not like, oh no, like they're making fun of me. It's like, oh, they just don't get it yet. Like, they'll see how cool it is. Don't worry. So yeah, that was the first 2 years of high school. Then in 2017, like a very formative era for maybe like 2016, 2017. A lot of the filmmakers in kind of the pocket of the internet colliding with a little bit more of cinema was like this Sam Colder type era of YouTube, and there's like the Rory Kramer, Sam Colder, That One Blonde Kid side of things, and they started collaborating.
I remember That One Blonde Kid.
Yeah,
I haven't thought about that in a while. Are you talking about that, like the guy? That was his name, right? With all of like with the capital T and the capital. I remember that guy. Yeah,
crazy. Those guys mainly made videos with the Chainsmokers, and it was like associated with their rise. But that scene on YouTube, like if we want to talk about parallels, like that scene is that plus the Yes Theory scene is the grandfather to the YouTube New Wave scene that we're like kind of tapping into now.
Wow, but it's like that more closely relates to Live2 in a lot of ways, and then like even the Yes Theory stuff does, because like that at its core was a group of filmmakers making videos about a group of musicians.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was like, again, subconsciously, but I just thought, I saw one Sam Colder video in 2016. I was just hooked on that, as were 60% of the filmmakers that we now work with. Like that was like the genesis of this idea that you could travel the world with a camera and independently make videos about people.
I think Casey Neistat too is another one that like that he blew my mind open for like that. It was like the idea of, that wall right there doesn't exist if it's not for Casey Neistat. Like it's like the idea of being somebody who like you are traveling the world simply based on the fact that you can hold a camera and be good at holding that camera and doing things that are good with that. It's like, I know that's incredibly dumbing down what it really is, but it's like just even that basis, that idea it blew my mind in the early days. Like it blew my mind. And then spaces like this for me, like there's so many spaces on YouTube and like in pop culture that I looked at, they're like now are like what this is. Like this garage, this studio to me is like built off of those spaces. And it's like that was what I wanted to build. Like a community space where it was like, people could come in and come out and work out of and just do different things. It was like a place where everybody could feel creative. And that is like what inspired this space. So I feel you with the Sam Colder thing, and that parallel is very clear between like what they were doing in Live2.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. I think I was 16 or 17 at the time when that all started, and that's what transferred me away from the trick shots and into like, okay, let me see if I can like tell a little bit more of a story. Even though like that scene was like visual heavy.
Like cinematography.
Yeah, and I think that like I started to pretty quickly, I think that there was like, because it was a huge scene for about 2 years, but I think very quickly I started to see that there was a little bit of flimsiness to only visual stuff. And they were storytellers, but that wasn't exactly their focus for a lot of the stuff that they were putting out that was making them popular. And I was like, I think the visuals are sick, but I think I got to learn like something deeper than that too. And so I was like starting to poke around, but I was like equally, this is so crazy, but equally to how I didn't listen to music when I was a kid, I was also terrified of movies. I wouldn't watch movies until I was about 16 years old as well. So I don't know what I did as a kid. I would like go outside and play with sticks or something. I don't know. But like
think. Think really hard.
Like the stories, I should probably dive into why I didn't why I was terrified of movies. I think the stories felt so real to me, and like being, I think one of the qualities that has led me to be able to understand how to balance the wants and needs of people in these early days of things is like the ability to be like a bit more empathetic. And I think I'm so empathetic that like I would empathize with the movie characters so much that it would like affect me too much as a kid to watch those things.
That's crazy, yeah.
And so I going from that and then like growing up watching the YouTube stuff and that being the storytelling side of things, but having like starting to appreciate more and more the cinematic side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It started naturally going in this direction of like, I need to figure out what I'm actually doing here. Like, what am I trying to do with these stories I'm telling?
Real quick, so you point out like Sam Colder in that lane, and he was somebody who was like very much doing similar things, but like the focus was very often the cinematics of it and the visual appeal of it. Was there anybody at the time that you could point to who was doing the same thing but through storytelling? I have an interesting example of like who I resonated with at that time.
Interesting. I think the yes theory side of things was for me like the big, a bit more story driven side of things, like pseudo documentary style videos. But who's your reference?
McJuggernuggets.
Interesting. I think I've heard you talk about him before.
He was when I realized you can like make something online that's larger than life, because he like created this whole pseudo documentary series that was essentially like, it was disguised as a vlog. It was him he was vlogging about his life. That's the crazy part. It's like he was vlogging about his life, and it was no different than you or me picking up a camera and explaining what we did today and going through our day to day. But it's like those vlogs progressively got crazier and crazier and crazier, and it led you down this pipeline story that he had engineered from the outside, and you didn't, or from the inside, and you didn't know that. Right. But it's like he got to the point where like people like could tell but it was essentially like his family were the main characters, and it was talking about like a somewhat abusive household that like just inner conflict between family members and stuff, and it was crazy to watch because it was like in real time. Me and my brother watched this religiously. I remember we'd come home from school and we'd sit down with our Kindle Fires and we'd watch McJuggernuggets, and we both like thought it was real. And then it's like as we got older and we grew with him, we realized like, oh, this isn't real. Like he's just like he's making these vlogs larger than they really are. But it was like over the course of 3 years he eventually turned this into the story like so seamlessly that like you just saw crazier and crazier things happening until you realized it was fake, but he never said it. And then it ended in like this epic climactic 1 hour long episode that like it was like the climax to all these storylines. And then he, at the end, you see him turn the camera. And this is the last of the McJuggernuggets series. It's crazy to think about, but he at the very end of it, he turns the camera and you see all these cameras on and camera guys,
like a camera crew, and like the whole set and everything.
Filming his family,
Truman Show type shit.
Exactly, very Truman Show, but like insane. And like in the early days, similar to your experience with the S Theory, I think that made me realize that you can create things on the internet that are larger than life. And like, whereas in a movie series or a movie franchise, you can only go so far, because it's like, or even a TV show, it's like that's really only happening either once a week as a TV show, or it's happening like once every 5 years or 3 years if it's a movie series. Like the most popular movie series are only like once every couple of years. But the thing about, and I think this is, I realize now, the only thing that I can point to that like relates to it, which is a world I'm not in a lot, is anime. Because anime just goes and goes and goes and never stops. Comic books also funny enough at the same way. But it's like with internet shows, things just never have to stop. The story can become larger than life because it never ends. You know,
it's funny you say the comic book and the anime side of things, because I feel like I've picked up on the fact that a lot of the greatest like world building people are obsessed with one or the other or both of those things, which
makes me want to start watching more anime.
Yeah, because I've never fallen into like really either of those things, but like I definitely have seen the through line of a lot of people really caring a lot about that stuff.
And it makes sense. That's really cool to think about, actually. I need to get more in the anime thing.
Yeah.
Okay, but so Sam Colder, Yes Theory around that time. Yeah. Then where are you going from there?
So, I'd say the Yes Theory is like the big transition side of things. I was doing stuff on the side, obviously, like all my friends played football. I was like the guy that would be on the sidelines shooting stuff, like basically making a small documentary about like their season, and I put that out on the same channel as the trick shot stuff. So it's all there, all the stuff I'm talking about.
It's just called McClain Portis, right?
Yeah, I think that's what the channel's called. It used to be called Ultimate Insanity when it was a trick shot channel.
That's fire.
That's very niche.
I'm going to change my name to Ultimate Insanity. I name my kid Ultimate Sanity.
We got the LLC, so you can't.
Still?
I think we might have stopped paying for that.
Will you sue me?
No, you can have it.
Okay.
That would be cool. I'll pass the torch off.
Start another Ultimate Sanity.
I should pass that down to like whoever's a freshman in high school now.
No, your kids.
They have to start a trick shot channel.
If they don't, I'm disowning them.
But okay, so the transition between high school to college was definitely formed around this yes theory time period.
Yeah.
And I graduated high school in 2018, and for a year or so, I was really obsessed with this YouTube channel, which, if you're not familiar with it, called Yes Theory. It was built around 4 guys originally, which became 3 after 2 years, I think. And they prescribed to this idea of like seek discomfort. Like the greatest things in life are on the other side of your comfort zone, and like go do things that people think are not possible, and like tell the story of doing it because you can. And like that was like their entire mentality. And so they would just do stuff that, like, in the same vein, I don't want to spoil this yet, so I guess I'll save it, but they would do stuff that would make people, like our parents, be like, how the hell is this possible? Like, how is this their life, that they can go do that? And like, that Phineas and Ferb kind of mentality of like, aren't you a little too young to be doing that, or whatever it is. And so I was very obsessed with that idea. I came out to LA because I'm from Nashville. And so I came out to LA for college. I went to USC, went to the film business school.
Did you go to USC because of the fact that you knew you wanted to do something in video and you knew that you had to be in LA for it, or you should be in LA?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm thankful I did, because it wasn't like as purposeful as it perhaps sounds. Like I liked USC. I liked the idea of being in this place that everybody said was like the mecca of entertainment. And I was hoping that my program, I'm very thankful now that my program wasn't this way, but I was hoping that my program was based in the world that we are now, like the new entertainment side of things.
Hell no.
But it's very, very traditional, which has actually proven, and I guess I'll probably get into this more later too,
yeah.
But it is now proven. At first I was like a little bit bitter about it, and the early classes and stuff for the first fucking 3 years were not things that I cared about. But finally, like in the last year, as huge managers of big actors came and were my professors, and like big production company kind of people and whatnot, like I got to see a glimpse of like the old heyday of Hollywood, of how everything was structured, because there are huge crossovers between the way things were and what they're becoming again, and we're kind of in this transition era. Like the tools of the game are very different. The methods of distribution of everything is very different, but the structures to be able to hold those things together are becoming more and more reflective of the way that they used to be. And most of the people in the forefront of like this new wave, it's slowly being built because they don't know those structures. Like they were the kids in their bedrooms that have accidentally created massive production companies.
None of them meant to get there.
Yeah. They were just passionate like we were. So it's like I got to see behind the scenes, and how when you do have a massive conglomerate, like how are sets structured, how do you have directors, producers, DPs, like that's not a way that a kid starting a YouTube channel thinks. And they have to slowly like Mr. Beast now is like the largest, probably, this is to guess, don't quote me on this, but I'm assuming the largest game show channel that has ever existed in the history of mankind. All of his sets, though the distribution and the way they're thinking about the creative side of what they're doing, but they're all structured, I'm sure, very, very similarly to this
to the traditional type stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm
sure the creative process is very different, but like the way that they think about structuring it is very similar.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that at a certain point is plug and play.
Yeah. And so, I guess I went out to USC, and I went on a tangent there. Like when I came out to school here, I myself fancied myself to be like a storyteller, a filmmaker, but not like I don't know, I wasn't trying to be like a huge director in Hollywood. I knew I wanted to do something different. I didn't know what it was. My classes weren't really like lining up with the things that I thought about this new industry, and like
Interesting.
I was looking around for like.
So you never like so like that'd be such that had to be such a different and unique experience, because like you went to a program with a bunch of kids that want to be directors and want to be filmmakers and want to work in the traditional Hollywood film industry, and you were just so not like, you just didn't resonate with that at all, but you were in the same thing, doing the same things as them, but you didn't know why really.
I mean, I looked around and I thought that everybody was living in a time that had ended 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whenever the internet really became, and the methods of distributing what people care about have changed so much. I was like, they're only studying the old thing and going to be thrown into a system that's like not working anymore. And so I you know, and most of this was like subconscious. It wasn't like things yet that I was like actively able to point out and be like, oh, here's why I feel this way and why everybody else around me feels differently.
You realize that later on.
Yeah, like looking back now.
It's almost like as the fog clears, you realize like why you did the things that you did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm realizing that more and more. I had a conversation earlier today with Andrew Garden. Do you know Andrew Garden?
I don't know.
Makes really sick music, but he came up as like a meme rapper named Young Nugget. And he like went super viral doing that, and then like transitioned into a more serious project. But he was talking earlier, we both were very much relating on like how we felt like we both were so chronically online as kids, and like that was something I didn't even realize until like later in my life, because like for the longest time I thought that was just normal. I thought every kid my age spent like 8 hours a day on the internet, on TeamSpeak, on Reddit, on fucking Skype, like playing Minecraft and CS:GO and TF2 and talking to kids in Australia. I thought that was how every kid spent their time. But like I didn't realize that I was so chronically online until like probably like the past couple of years. You know, the fog has cleared. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was on the internet a lot as a kid. And it probably changed the way that I think of the world.
It's very formative. It's like your third parent is the internet. And that like connects a lot of us, I think, because 100%. We saw a lot of the same things, which is crazy that people from very different backgrounds can have like one very connecting thing. Which I don't know, not to get too deep into like the societal side of things, but I think that that's why like our generation is a bit more in tuned and on the same page about like, you know, very particular like natural occurrences of humanity, like religious type things, and like people like kind of taking a bit further of a step back and looking at like why things are the way that they are, and like even if they disagree on things, at least being able to take a wider perspective and be like, I see how you see it that way, and examine why you see it that way.
And I think, and again, not to get, this is like a bit of stretch here to talk about this, but it's like, to me, that is like the reach across that I think like does help like heal us as a people, is like that ability to be empathetic to the point where we understand why other individuals make the decisions and come to the conclusions that they do.
I think we're closing out the era where the people that rule the world grew up in local communities, and then we're given access to a global community, and we were raised in a global community where like 100%. We can talk to kids in Australia, and like, you know, maybe we're not going to be able to heal everything, but I think that like there is hope because we have that like common ground of, and you know, maybe the pockets of the algorithm are going to fuck that up, but for a while there, like I think for that 10-year period of time before it became so algorithmically driven that they're like echo chambers. I think before that there was this time period where we were all like on the same page a bit more, which is interesting. Anyways, that's a huge tangent, so we won't go further down that one. But let's see, where were we with the story? I guess I had just made it out to LA. I was like slightly frustrated with my classes, still new here, and I was like, I'm an artist, but my videos are not getting that much reach. Like I'm posting these YouTube videos, and as we know, YouTube is fucking hard.
Yes, it is. It's harder now than it ever has been.
Yes, and it'll just keep getting harder.
Yep.
And so I looked around, frustrated myself, and then I looked around and saw people that were 10 times better artists than me across the board that also were having trouble. And I was like, well, if they're fucking having trouble, then how the hell am I supposed to like make it in any kind of art?
I know exactly what you mean.
And so I was watching these Yes Theory videos. There's one particular episode I think it was posted in 2017 that I thought back to when I kind of started to have this revelation of like, wow, there are so many artists in LA trying to make it and so many people that are not making it because like these algorithms are starting to rule the world. Like 2018 or so is when like that algorithm side of things really started to kick up a notch, I think. And
what you're seeing is chosen.
Yeah. And it's like, like following those algorithms was the way that people were being put on. And if you didn't know how to make these videos, it's like, why should a precursor to being a musician or to being a painter or to being a photographer be making videos? Like that makes no sense.
Zero.
That should not be a prerequisite for being a painter. You know?
And in fact, it makes less sense than like the marketing to success relationship in art ever has.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, if you were an author in 1990, it made a lot of sense why you went on a book tour. It was so you could show people your book and they would read it. It wasn't that complicated, you know. Like that marketing to success relationship makes far more sense and is way more clear cut than the one that exists now, where it's like, why am I making a documentary as a rapper? You know what I mean? But it's like, because you have to find a way to make yourself more than a rapper.
And it's just the tools that we have available, and that's the thing that drives the most like attention right now. And so
you realize that?
I started to pick up on that, and then I thought back to this Yes Theory episode where there was this group of guys, the Yes Theory guys, and the idea of this episode was they were going to listen to one fan email and do whatever it said.
Wow, that's so cool.
And so they got sent an email from this group of musicians out of Seattle. It was like one member of a band, I think, saying that like their lead singer had like stage fright and they wanted to throw a big concert, but like they wanted to make sure that there were going to be people there or whatever it was. And they just wanted to like throw a concert because they had never done that before. And so these Yes Theory guys got on a plane, flew out there, and had to piece together how to throw a concert over the course of like 3 days.
Yeah.
And they had, because this channel, the Yes Theory channel, had multiple millions of subscribers, they were able to get like 400 people there to this tiny band's show. And like show.
How many people?
Like 400 or so. So it was like a 300, 400. It was a pretty decent sized crowd for a band that had like 3,000 monthly listeners.
Wow.
Or whatever
Okay.
it was.
Yeah.
Like, it was just such a cool, heartwarming experience, and something that like, it felt handmade again instead of felt pushed by this algorithm. It's like, wow, there is something to this, and I knew it was like a one-off episode for these guys, and I respected everything that they were doing for so long, but I was like, there should be somebody that does this, and this is like represents that exact spirit. So like out of that episode, thinking back to it and being like, and then being at school, I remember sitting on top of this parking garage next to my freshman dorm room and having this realization, and that's where I like came up with the name Live2, and like because it was supposed to be like, what do you live to do? And it was gonna be like,
you said sitting on a parking garage your freshman year?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
I was like sitting on my skateboard, and just obsessing over this idea of like, I want to turn the camera around, not on myself. I still want to be like a side character in a lot of these stories, but I want the main character to be whatever I'm pointing the camera at. And like, I can be the through line, I can be there through a lot of it, and like, but I want, I didn't know this reference at the time, but it was basically like the Cootie to the Kanye type thing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be that for as many artists as I possibly could be, and as many of the diamonds in a rough, because like calling back to the metal detecting thing, I wanted to find and discover as many cool people as I possibly could. And tell
their story.
Yeah. And so that was like the original idea for the channel. I started on YouTube. I spent my whole freshman year. It started as a clothing brand. What was
the point of the clothing brand? That's one thing I've never understood in the story.
I don't remember where the idea for it first started, but it was very similar to, we've talked about like the hand numbering of things, and I was like, it would be so sick if every artist that was involved had their own piece of clothing that I hand numbered, so you would always know what number fan of theirs you were. So it's like you could be at some event and you could have like the number 17 hoodie, and you would be able to show people that you were that early. That was like the bigger idea, but I spent like 9 months like I had never made clothing before. And so I spent like 9 months figuring out how to make a cut and sew from scratch, completely like done ourselves hoodie. And I went to the fashion designs. Like I would like, there are certain things that I like, what's the right words? Somebody will give me a suggestion for something that I will know is not me. It's not what I stand for. And like the idea of any kind of like drop shipping type thing for the clothing or anything that wasn't like
Weird.
made from scratch, I just like shuddered to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it has to be made from scratch. Like it has to be the dopest possible version of whatever it is in order for me to want to do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, fuck it. I'm figuring out how to make my own hoodie from scratch. And I don't know. I didn't realize how crazy that was. And everybody that I would talk to was like, you're fucking ridiculous. Like just do it this other way. I'm like,
stupid,
no, I
yeah.
have to figure this out. Like, so it was like a little bit of a slight tangent, which I'm very glad I went down because it's great lore. And spent 9 months figuring that out. And then with that prototype hoodie, traveled to Hawaii for my freshman year spring break with my future roommate, and because he was from Hawaii, and found 3 photographers in Hawaii that I made like a small, I hesitate to call it a documentary because it wasn't very good, but like something about them that tried to like showcase their art. And then like off
So
the
it
back
wasn't
of
just
that was
musicians.
no, it
was-
started
okay.
any kind of artist, like painters, dancers, other filmmakers.
Gotcha.
Anybody.
So it was finding a way to highlight these other musicians, or these other artists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was not a very well thought out idea yet at the time. And it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't a very thought out idea yet.
Feel that.
But that was the first iteration of things, and then this is crazy. But that summer, I went on like a family vacation or something because I remember being in South Carolina and scrolling through TikTok or Instagram. TikTok didn't exist yet, and trying to find just the coolest undiscovered stuff that I could, and messaging them and asking them if they wanted to be a part of Live2, because I wanted to build this like, I don't know, collective of artists that all were bought into this vision and being characters inside of this thing that we were doing, and like we would all rise together, and like the clothing brand would be
Interesting.
behind those artists.
So
and all
that
of
was
that.
like a greater overarching idea that hasn't changed, but
Yes.
you just hadn't figured out what that meant yet,
Yes.
essentially.
Exactly. And so I spent all summer putting together this list of people that a lot of them still like follow Live2, and I see them like watching the stories and stuff, which is
That's
so sick.
cool. Wow.
But they were like a couple photographers, a couple dancers, a couple painters, 1 or 2 filmmakers, like just a random ass conglomerate of these artists that I was like so passionate about it that I think they were all just like, all right, yeah, I guess I'm a part of this thing.
This
And,
kid
like,
seems cool. Yeah.
and so it was like we had this one Instagram group chat of all these people. Just like there was like a parkour guy from like Russia or something like that in there with like sketch artists from Texas, like just this random conglomerate of people. And I saw a couple of them start to buy in more, and but I don't know, I was still trying to do it on YouTube and nothing was really working. And it was I had, at this point, I think I'm entering into my sophomore year, so this is what year is this? This is 2019, like August 2019 or so. These videos were not working, like 100 views on YouTube. Like we know the vibe. And I was getting frustrated, but I was so obsessed with this idea of bringing whatever this thing that had popped into my mind a year before, like, to life, that I had slowly gone down that rabbit hole of like that like desperation to get this idea out into the world, that like I stopped caring about anything else. And
this was sophomore year, and you still didn't really understand what it was.
Yeah. But I would wake up thinking about it. I would go to sleep thinking about it. And there was enough tangible things to like be working on and trying to figure out that like I could just give everything I had to it. Which it was the most isolating time period of my entire life, because it was like nobody else was on par with me in terms of like nobody understood what I was trying to do. And
Yeah.
you know, like I had a girlfriend at the time that we became less and less close throughout this time period as I was driven further into this hole, which was its own thing. And I, you know, stopped going to, I never cared about or for parties very much or any of those things. And so like college, I pretty much just like at this point locked myself in my room and I was just like, I'm figuring this out, like whatever it is. I had basically throughout college, I made one friend, which we'll get to that in the future. But
interesting.
I would play video games still every now and then with my friends from high school, and I would work on Live2, and that was it. That was it.
The video games must have been a great escape.
Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend this path for things, but it definitely was very formative, and I don't regret it, but I think I could very easily regret it if I gave up, which I didn't.
Did you have those moments when a friend would ask you to hang out, you would then say no, and then they would not understand why, and it'd be confusing and awkward?
I didn't have friends to hang out with, so I mean, yes, but like no at the same time, because like I had gone so far down the rabbit hole that I didn't even care about making friends. Like it wasn't like a sad thing. I was just so hyper obsessed with this, and the highs would be very high of figuring these things out. And like this is where my brain became much more like succinct in like the voice inside my head now is very strong, very loud, and it knows exactly what it needs and what it wants, and it can think through things very coherently.
Interesting. Okay.
And this was the time period where I like honed in on that completely.
Had it developed discipline yet, or did you never have to develop discipline because you literally were so obsessed with it that there was no discipline involved?
Yeah, it didn't really have to develop discipline yet. I think that there are things that I've learned now, but it's more so been like shaping the school of thought and the reasoning behind different things. But I would say it didn't need discipline because it was just so obsessed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess those first couple months of school from August to October or so, I was still, I remember I made a video trying to get the concept to the Yes Theory guys.
You good? I don't hear a noise. Do you hear a noise?
I don't think so. Is there a mouse?
Oh, it's definitely a mouse in there.
In the bag or what? There's a mouse in the bag? Yep. No fucking way.
On the phone and it just scurried out. Oh, I did a hole through.
No way.
That sneaky motherfucker.
Bro.
Oh, he's still in here. Is he?
I wish the cameras could see what you guys are doing right now. All right, guys, I'm going to narrate this. Mario is currently got his face underneath the couch looking for a mouse that bit its way through a cardboard bag that probably has food in it, I would guess. This is a classic above the bridge studio kind of situation happening right now.
Honestly, textbook.
They just put it in the trash can. didn't even look.
It's in here now. Damn, that's crazy.
Oh my god.
Damn, the creepy crawlers in here, man. The fucking creepy crawlers.
Jesus Christ.
Where were you at? That was crazy. Dude, that was like, I was like, what noise? I took the headphones off.
Yeah.
I was instantly like, oh, that noise. We're keeping all that in. That's not going out.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That was wild. Okay. Where were you?
Let's see. I was obsessed. Lonely time. Oh, the videos weren't working still.
Lonely time.
This is October of 2019. And I was getting to the point where I was like, this is not working. I need to find another way to like build this. It was this just desperation to figure it out. And I forget exactly how this happened. I always tell people it was my little sister. I think my little sister told me about TikTok.
And this was like beginning of 2020, right?
This is November of 2019.
Oh, okay. So right before 2020.
Yeah.
So pre-pandemic though.
Yeah, pre-pandemic. Pretty early at TikTok. Like I think TikTok became a thing in 2018 maybe. And so
yeah. And it didn't matter yet.
Yeah. None of my friends had it. Like I remember it being like, ear contacts also on TikTok, and there were like 4 other people.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
Wow,
like, it wasn't
you were
cool.
very early then. Wow.
Yeah. And so I hopped on there, and pretty quickly, because I remember just like being a one-man team and not exactly knowing what you're trying to do yet. Like it wasn't as clear cut in my brain as I think that I'm presenting it to be now. Like it was even cloudier than it was. And like, because
what was
what I was trying to do, like,
so it was even cloudier in the way you're describing it.
Yeah, like there was the ethos of like I need to discover these artists, but also like, you know, it was just cloudy. It was all over the place. I didn't know what I was trying to build yet.
Okay.
And so I just started making videos about anything I could basically
On TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of. I attribute it now with the 20. Like hindsight is 2020 kind of thing to being like I was figuring out what kind of videos to make on the platform that would like be received well and like actually like what this app was all about. And it was like related to the stuff with these artists, and I would, you know, there was like a video of I think the first video that ended up doing anything was a video of like a seal that I had taken on this trip to Hawaii, and that seal was like wiggling on the beach and like bouncing around.
Oh, SEEL. Like
SEAL.
Like the animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you meant like a Navy SEAL.
No. No.
You just took a video of a seal?
Yeah, because we were like on a shoot, and there was like a photographer there that I was making a video about, and this seal started like bouncing around, and I don't know, that video got like 20,000 views. And
what are those classic seal vids?
Yeah, you know, we all have one.
Textbook.
And you know, it got like 3,000 likes or something like that. I was like, holy shit, like this is nuts. What do you
imagine
mean?
if I made a real video?
And so then I started like diving a little bit more into it. I became just obsessed with this app before anybody else that I knew was. And my daily schedule became like wake up, script a video for this thing for TikTok, go to class from noon until about 5 p.m., eat my first meal of the day, like a massive meal right after my class, and then go home, shoot my video, edit it that night, post it the next morning. And I did that for about 4 months or so, from November to February.
And that was right after you realized, holy shit, a lot of people are watching the silly seal video.
Yeah.
What if I make actual videos?
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out what are those actual videos I'm actually going to be making.
Okay,
so
and
I
that
went
was
through like a wide array of things.
That was sophomore year, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And in that time, I started to figure out like the platform a lot more, and I grew the account from like 0 followers to 200,000 in like 2 months or so. So coming back from Christmas break, I didn't know how to build it around that brand I was trying to do, but like I was trying now, and I was like, it can't just be random fucking videos about seals. It needs to be something that matters.
No more seal videos.
Yeah. And so I came back to school, and there was this one professor that, because I was doing some like freelance stuff on the side. I always hated doing freelance stuff. I cannot stand working for anybody else's vision besides my own, which, you know, is whatever. But I was just taking photos for a professor in a music class, and I had already gotten to like, I think like 200,000 followers or so on TikTok. I knew I wanted to make it about artists. I'd never made a video about a musician before. I was in this class, this USC, like just in this old rundown building in the music school, and there were a couple people that performed. They were basically like showing songs that they had just made. That was like the thing that they were doing, and I was taking photos for that. And there were 2 guys that went that I was blown away by their music. And I went up to both of them actually and told them what I was trying to do. And I was like, I remember the guy that I ended up making a video about, his name was Chase Paves. I remember going up to him and saying, there's something very specific I was going to say about this. Hold on. Let me think of what it was. Oh yeah, because when he was performing, he said, I've never released music before. I don't know where to begin. I know when I put stuff out, I want people to see it. So I'm like holding on to this stuff, but I have a lot of songs ready to go.
Yeah, like he didn't know how to market it yet, but he had it and he was confident in it.
Yeah. And so I was like, and then he performed and the song was sick. It was a song called Bedtime, which is, I still believe, a great song. And I went up to him after class. I was like, I don't know jack shit about the music industry. I know nothing. But over the last couple of months, and I showed him the profile, I was like, I've been telling random ass stories. I want to do this thing where I like make videos about artists and put them on. And like, I would love to make a video telling your story and the story of two kids that know nothing about the music industry really, because he didn't know anything either. He was just making music out of his bedroom.
Yeah.
I was like, let's tell the story of ourselves trying to break into the music industry.
You know, just to cut you off real quick, what's so crazy about that is like it was the model. Like the model was right there. Like that was the model, but you had no fucking idea, and you didn't realize it for like another year.
Yeah.
Like that right there was the model. It was a filmmaker. Didn't really understand the music industry. It was a musician that didn't really understand the music industry, but it was like the two of them together could make something that defied the music industry, but they didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
And so from some stroke of luck, it was probably one of the best videos I had made, like myself. Since then, you know, we have, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like up until that time, and I still look back at it, like everything else from that time period, I look back at and I'm like, I don't fuck with this anymore, but like, that specific video, I'm like, this is still pretty dope.
Yeah.
Especially for like the time period that it was in, and like, you know, now looking at it with the context of what we know TikTok to be and like how it sits into the world of the music industry, I wouldn't make a video like that now, but like, you know, for what it was at the time, it was pretty revolutionary inside of it. And thankfully, from whatever the fuck TikTok gods exist or whatever, it did really well. I think it did about 2 million views over the course of like 2 days or so. And it was just it was the perfect like pipeline back to people caring about his music, this one video. And he didn't have the rights to one of the samples that he used in the song, which stopped him from putting the song out for like 2 months. Like I do often wonder what would have happened if he had released it that day, because it would have been like 10 times. I think it has like 2 million streams now or something, but it would have been probably 20 million streams if he put it out at the right time.
Wow, that's crazy.
But I watched, this was about 2 weeks before COVID started.
Okay.
So we put out that episode.
Wow, what timing.
Yeah, fucking crazy. And we put out that episode, put out one more that did a couple 100,000 views after that, and then COVID started, and I had to move back to Nashville. This whole project that we were like about to embark upon with that kind of fell apart.
What was that experience like at USC when COVID started? Like, was it very quickly like, hey, like there's a disease, everybody go home? That's kind of what it was. I was in high school at the time, but that's what it was.
Yeah, our spring break was about to start, and then they were like, hey, we're starting spring break like a couple days early, I think. And then
that was us too.
Yeah, and then we're like, they extended it once, and then they were like, actually this is going to be permanent for the time being, and we're like, all right, sounds good.
I remember everybody was like, this is lit, like yes, we're not going back to school. 3 weeks spring break. Little did they know.
But going home and being in Nashville and not continuing on that journey with that one artist, because I was also like becoming pretty concerned off the bat of like, how do I do this without the entire brand becoming about this one artist? Like I didn't want Live2 to only be about one artist. I was like, it needs to be like a group of people. It needs to be bigger than just this one thing. And so I was like, I was very confused about that at first. And so this kind of gave me like an excuse to go home and figure that out. And so because I wasn't able to be in person with artists anymore, and I watched the raw power of 2 million people before mainstream music industry was on this thing. Just the raw power of 2 million people wanting a piece of music to come out.
Wow.
And it was
because now that means nothing.
Yeah.
But it's like then,
I mean,
it was legitimately 2 million people wanting a song to come out. Obviously, that means something.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that still gets tapped into. Like, if you do it right, you can still tap into that. But at the time, it was so novel that it was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was, I think Old Town Road, Yellow Hearts, and fucking Falling had come off the app at that point.
Okay.
Nothing else, really. And so, yeah, I just I realized that telling stories about musicians and what that format of artist represented was like at the very core of every musician. There has to be an entrepreneur. Like there has to be this thing.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like it's wrapped in this bow of art, and it was the perfect combination of everything I'd ever been looking for. It was like we have the diamonds in the rough, we have the entrepreneurship, and we have the art all in one around like a very interesting character. And like that was like light bulbs went off in my head. I was like, okay,
This is what I've been trying to figure out.
yeah, this is something. I need to dive into this more. And so when I went home, couldn't be with artists in person anymore. But off the back of that one episode, I probably had 10,000 DMs over the next couple months from artists sending me their music, being like, please make an episode about me. Like, I'm stuck in my bedroom too, can't figure it out. I make music, here's my song. Like, please help.
So at this point, it was literally just like a TikTok account that was profiling musicians, but it was telling their story opposed to highlighting their music.
Yeah.
That is, and I know it sounds silly, but that almost now is a good concept. And I
Yeah.
think like that still isn't fleshed out upon
Yeah.
as often as it should be, at least in like a long format. That's very much what this is.
Yeah.
It's like I want to give people a platform to tell their real story, like
Yeah.
all the story, 100% of it.
Yeah.
You know, not like a little bit of it.
Right. I absolutely agree.
But it's like, I guess that still to this day is not even a super fleshed on upon concept. This magazine's really cool. Shout out to it's always sits on the table. I've never talked about it actually in an episode. It's called Forgotten Magazine. Really, really sick. I met the guy who runs it at a show. And yeah, there's an ad, but yeah, no, it's really cool because it does the similar, it almost reminds, it's like the print version, what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's each page is about like a different musician,
Yeah.
and they just highlight them like a full
super
like
sick.
chronicle about like it. So very similar vibe is what it sounds like to what
Yeah.
the original Live2 TikTok was.
Yeah. Like this is, like being able to tell those stories was the goal. But it was in an unsustainable format. By just trying to do it myself. Like I could do it, but not at the scale that I wanted to be able to do it. I wanted to be able to help so many people, tell so many different stories all at once. And I was just like, how the hell do I get to the point where I can do that? And so I was forced during COVID by being at home to have to like basically scroll through these songs, and I loved doing it. But I would basically treat it as like a treasure hunt. Like I would go through this thing and I would try to find the dopest unknown stuff that nobody had heard of yet. And I would make a video about the story usually of how I found that thing. And I would take these viewers like on that journey slightly with me of like unearthing something that they had never seen before and the world had never seen before. And wrap the artist's story into that story of how I discovered them. And like, you know, it would be that like just in a very small way what I was trying to do, but like that small way had so much potential for reach.
It's like the main character's the artist. Mm-hmm. You're a side character, but the part that concerns you is finding them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so it was like something that people could get behind. And that's when I came up with this mantra of art, not algorithms, which is hanging over there in the neon sign above that door. And that I still knew nothing about the music industry, but I think somebody suggested I start like a playlist, I think. And so I needed a name for it, and I remembered I had come up with that name, Art Not Algorithms, and it was like the perfect embodiment of what I was trying to do. Because I was like, it's unfair that artists have to break these algorithms now. And I was like, I wish that algorithms didn't have to be broken in the first place to get good art out there. But if it does, then I'm going to be the one who breaks it so that the artist doesn't have to.
Yeah. And
that was what Art Not Algorithms kind of meant to me at the time, and still kind of does. And it represents this idea of like bringing real art back instead of peddling the capitalistic side of like art and commodity.
It's like changing the incentive structure to making things that impact people rather than things that make people money.
Yeah. Wow. And trying to, it's almost like a hopeless vision, but because it's hopeless, people can get behind it, and therefore it becomes not hopeless.
All the best visions are.
Yeah. And so that was, the mantra. I made that the Spotify playlist. People started to really resonate with it, and at the end of each of these videos, I would make about these artists, like in kind of a one-off format about them, because I again didn't want it to be about one person. I wanted it to be about discovering a lot of people. And I just couldn't go as in depth as I wanted to about some of them, which was a huge thing I wanted to figure out for the future, but I didn't know how to yet.
So are those the ones that stuck?
So it's interesting. A lot of those people, I mean, Parker, PM Beta,
Wow, yeah.
was he was the second musician I ever made a video about.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's wild to think about. Wow.
Yeah. Like there's a YouTube video of me going through the submissions, and the first DM he ever sent to me in 2020 said, "Hey, I saw that Making a Sensation video that you made. Here's my song. I'm a rapper from Kansas City. Like, can you, like, what do you think?"
So you were doing it on YouTube and TikTok at that point, like?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was trying to do this series called Car Jams where I would like go through the submissions.
There's one of those still up on the channel, right?
Yeah,
It-
yeah.
it'll
And there's
pop
one
up on
privated one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the very first one of those where I'm in my car in Nashville with my friend Houston, like my best friend from high school, the very last artist that we found in that session of going through stuff was Parker.
Is Parker? That's crazy.
And so made that video. That one got like 1 million views or so. I convinced Parker to, like, I didn't even know Parker at the time. I FaceTime him for the first time I ever talked to Parker. You see it in that YouTube video because I FaceTime him right there through Instagram.
Wow.
He hadn't even responded to my message yet of me responding back of us listening to it, and I just FaceTimed him right there and he picked up.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of niche and crazy. But yeah, following that, or at the end of those TikTok videos, I would say like I can't make a video about everybody that I want to. There's so many great artists out here. Like I'm starting this playlist called Art Not Algorithms where I'm putting all the other artists that I can't make videos about. And so that playlist very quickly got to 100,000 followers or so. And
Wow.
that was like the first.
How many of those were like people who wanted their music to be on the playlist?
I really don't have a concept of that. I think maybe 30% of the people were like
Okay,
artists
wow.
themselves, but a lot of people just really resonated with that message and like wanted to discover dope music. Like I felt like I was taking normal people that were not music heads on the journey of like discovering
Cool.
music and like the thing that we love to do. And so yeah, that playlist was the first like tangible asset that I had that didn't require like 10 hours worth of work in order to make something about somebody.
Yeah.
That I could just put somebody on there. And so that was like a big door opener into like managers starting to reach out to me, and like so many people tried to like pay me to put stuff on there, and it just wasn't right, you know.
And
It's
those
like,
musicians you were finding mostly were from TikTok, right? So
Yeah,
it was like
for
a
the most part.
concept that was born out of TikTok, and then the musicians that were funding
Yeah.
or filling that concept were from TikTok as well.
yeah, I mean it was either
Gotcha.
But I guess at the time when I was going through submissions, it was people that might not necessarily have been making videos on TikTok, but they were
Yeah.
on TikTok watching what was
Gotcha.
happening, and like they were like, "Hey, I'm a musician. Like, I'll send this to him."
Okay.
And it started to become apparent that like I still knew nothing about the music industry, and so at this time I started watching these people that I was discovering. Like, you know, I'd watched the Chase Pace thing kind of like have a huge moment and then like not be followed up super properly, and like there was, you know, it was just, you know, maybe I don't know. I think if we had known what we were doing at the time, we probably together
made a
could
lot
have
of
made
stars.
it work a lot more. And then so every time it would happen, I was kind of like, I never tried to manage anybody. I never tried to like do anything too early. I was a big proponent of like, I'm just going to be the first person in their corner, try to like do the best I can for them, and then, you know, I was happy to see them go on to their next thing, but I was watching, and like I became homies with them, and I cared about their career and them as people, and
Which is already the basis of community building, whether you realized it or not.
yeah. And so a lot of those people I watched over the course of the next couple of years like go through some things that definitely were very formative, and so I'm glad that was the route that I took. But I guess so now we're in beginning of the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
And one of those artists that DM'd me after the PM Beta stuff and after the Chase Pave stuff was this guy named Ty Verdes, who was about to put out his first song, Stuck in the Middle. So that was one of the ones that I like was scrolling through, and I was like, oh, this is something. This is sick. It was like a week before the song dropped. We became friends pretty quickly because I hopped on a call with him, and he was very intelligent, like very. You could tell he didn't need me. Like
Yeah.
it was like, okay, this guy.
But it's
this guy
weird
gets
because
it.
like that's how smart. Because it's like he knew you knew he didn't need you. He probably knew he didn't need you, but
Yeah.
that is why he submitted.
Yeah,
You know,
And
which
it-
is like why he's smart enough to. Yeah,
it was interesting. And so we hopped on a call. He was still working. Our first call, because like this is a big part of his backstory, which I don't know if you know, because it's definitely like very pop leaning. But
Yeah.
he worked at a Verizon store, and that
Curated?
was where that was where the first basically campaign, like storyline, came out of him being like this worker at a Verizon store
I
who
didn't
had
know
a
that.
song that started doing well. And so the first call that we took, he was at that Verizon store on the call with me.
Wow.
In between customers, we would talk, and he and I just started talking a bit about like the like I was telling him what I had learned up until that point, and he was telling me like what his plans were, kind of, and we became like semi close but not super close. But I watched him, like he was very intelligent and was able to take what I was telling him and like figure out stuff on his own. And
Yeah.
he, instead of making one video about an artist on the Live2 page, he took the thing that I knew how to do and he made like 80 videos in a story arc on his page. And I was like, oh,
Wait, what do you mean?
like on his own TikTok page. Because up until that point, Live2
Yeah.
had only made videos on Live2's page about artists. And that was the way that, you know,
So
2
you-
million views was
I
the best we
see.
could do.
Okay.
And so I watched him take the knowledge that I knew about how to make a video do well and implement it into his own page with his own storyline. And he was able to make 80 videos instead of one about this song.
Interesting.
The
Wow.
best thing, like the best conversion I had ever had that I could figure out to a song up until that point was about 30,000 streams a day. And I watched his song over the course of that summer go from doing 1,000 streams a day to 10,000 to 30 to 100 to 300,000 streams a day. And then like, you know, very quickly, really,
It became
really
stuck in
rise
the
up
middle.
ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was like a fucking eye-opening moment because clearly I had some restructuring and rethinking to do on things. So
Yeah.
at that point,
And that's so interesting though. It's because like he wasn't trying to teach you that lesson, but he did.
Yeah.
It's that's so
Yeah.
cool.
he doesn't really, I don't know if he knows that he taught me this lesson.
Uh huh.
Um,
When was the last time you talked to him?
maybe a year ago.
Oh, okay.
We kept up for a while. But then
I'm sure he's super
gotten-
busy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gotten insanely busy. I became closer with his like management team.
That's cool.
It's like the Mike Posner management
Oh, okay,
team
yeah,
too.
yeah.
So we were early supporters in what we were
Nice.
doing.
Fuck yeah.
And so, yeah, through that lesson, I was like, all right, screw the Live2 TikTok page. I know that we have 500,000 followers now, but like, and this is something that I think a lot of people look at Live2 and like don't get, because it's like at this point I had to kind of swallow my pride. I was like, I know I can build something much deeper if I do this other way, but like I'm going to have to put the Live2 aspect to the side because I need to take what I know how to do and build the artist channels first, because you can tell these stories across any TikTok page. You could tell it like if we made a TikTok page for that flower pot, I could tell these stories through that flower pot's TikTok page and it would still do well. Like it doesn't matter that it's on our page with X amount, because followers don't mean shit on
No one's
TikTok.
watching it because it's Live2. People are watching because it's a good video.
Yeah.
It's like how I have to realize that like there's very few amount of people that are going to above, and this was probably my similar
Mhm.
walk back that I took was when I realized like, okay, Above the Bridge is not just a media company, it's an events company. And then I realized, okay, we're doing these events and lots of people are coming to them, but why? It's
Mhm.
not because of us.
Mhm.
I was like, but I'm so good at it.
Right.
But I'm like, it's not because of us. So how do we make that because of us? And that is the similar walk back that I think you're about
Yeah.
to describe. But continue.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, okay, I know that I can do bigger things for these artists' careers. And I was also realizing like, okay, if Live2 is going to become a business, I need to figure out how to, like if our only value was making one video about an artist, like that puts us in a very weak position to be able to stay a part of anything or like build any
Totally.
kind of like sustainable thing off of that.
It just wasn't a business model that
Yeah.
that like had longevity.
And I've watched a lot of, because the only way to make that a business model technically is to take upfront pay to make a video about artists, which kind of kills
Sucks.
the ethos in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I've watched a lot of like these curators that, like the biggest TikTok music curators have become friends of mine, and I watched them all over the last 2 years, and every single time it happens, I'm like, hop on a call with them. I'm like, yeah, you're facing these things, aren't you? And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? I was like, yeah, that was I know. I was there.
It's like you can keep going down that road, but then you are nothing more than like a like you literally become nothing more than like a pay for hire marketing playlist or conglomerate, whatever you want to fucking call it. But it's like the interaction there is just simply like people are paying you to be on that playlist, and that's what you're doing, and that becomes your entire incentive structure,
right?
And then that's soul killing, and you might as well go be a fucking lawyer.
And it's like that thing has its place, and I think that I think a goal is to have that be 1% of the thing that Live2 is, and like it's just something on the side that's dope, but like it can never be more than anything that's just like on the side because it's fucking cool.
You're talking about the
curator side of things. Like we still have the playlist, we still run it. It's a great community builder, but that's all that it really is a community builder.
It has been cool to watch it kind of come back though.
Yeah,
I think it is cool because I think it's very necessary, and like in kind of like it invokes a larger conversation about what Live2 has become and what it is. I think it's important.
Yeah, it definitely is. It has its place, but it is not the business-centric portion of Live2, and I needed to figure out what that was at first.
Yeah.
And so I joined on to these artists. Well, okay, let's see. Where did I start? I guess the end of summer of 2020.
So Tyvert has happened. You realize that you can make videos on these artist pages themselves, and then what happens?
I was still in conversations with a lot of these artists that had sent me stuff. And at this point, other artists were starting to follow. Like at the time when I was making these videos, there were no artists on there promoting their own stuff. Like artists hadn't done that yet. And so
hadn't done what?
Like they hadn't hopped on there and just started singing or like trying to make their own stuff do well. And like what we were doing.
Really?
Yeah. There, like I very specifically remember like seeing one artist at the time, and then like I convinced PM Beta to get on there and start doing it.
So
and
this
then
is
Tyvert did it, and then everybody started to like get on there.
So this was before artists were using TikTok to market their music.
Yeah, it like wasn't even on that level yet of people.
That's
like,
so elementary. That was like in my head. That's what it's always been. I wasn't on TikTok before that was happening.
Yeah, no, I mean before that, it was like
Vine.
Yeah, it was like Vine and Charlie D'Amelio type shit.
So basically, what you're saying is you are Charlie D'Amelio.
Yeah, pretty much. No, yeah. There's a whole side of this story of like when COVID ended. There's like because all that Live2 had been was in this TikTok bubble. It was like we looked very similar to like we knew we were accidentally part of this scene that was like the influencer houses things. Like I knew kids that were at all those things, and
Live2
like,
is the hype house.
Anyways, that's a tangent. So I had been sent a lot of music, but I started watching now other people start posting their stuff on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I came across this one girl named M. Byhold who there was a video. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of her page, it was maybe her 5th or 6th video that she posted, and she was wearing like this red polka dot shirt and played this song, and the video had about 10,000 views, and it was a song called City of Angels, and I thought it was super sick. And at this point, like Live2 had built up enough momentum to where I could just reach out to artists, and they had probably seen the stuff that we had done. So that was that has been like a huge benefit since day one.
For sure. Wow. Okay. It's just like that name recognition.
Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that more and more now as Above the Bridge grows, and it's like there's a lot of like underground names that have been involved with it. It's like people in those scenes like are becoming aware of just the name, and that helps a ton when you're reaching out to people.
If they get it, then they really get it, and it's that's always been like the reason why we can work with artists when labels like can't sign them.
Interesting.
It's
yeah.
Like they think that we're cool, and they don't think that labels are cool.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him through Instagram DM. I was like, yo, this song is sick. Like, are you gonna finish it?
How many followers did I have at this time?
Like 1,000 on TikTok or something like that. And she was like, yeah, it's in the plans to finish it. At this time, I had started to try to figure out, and it's so funny, like the way that these things were structured is pretty similar to how they've stayed. But I
That's ironic, isn't it?
I had like just tried. I was like, if I'm gonna start doing this, I need to figure out how to like participate safely. Like I don't I've heard that labels are bad. I don't know why that they're bad. I see these artists being super frustrated that they're not getting their stuff out there. There's got to be a way I can build this into a business. Like, I can't do it for free forever. I need to figure out how to structure this. And so I started doing like these threshold deals because I had learned about DistroKid. I didn't know how distribution worked. I didn't know what publishing was. I didn't know what a master was. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
And I heard of DistroKid, where like artists were uploading their stuff and that's how they got paid out. And I was like, okay. And then I heard that you could do splits on DistroKid. I was like, okay, well, I don't know what's fair, but I was like, I'll start with a low percentage and I will help make these videos. And it's like, if we can help get your song to 2 million streams in 1 month, then we get to stay on for our small percentage. If not, then we give all the percentage back and the artist can carry on as if it never happened and like take whatever momentum that they had. So
wait, so with this type of deal that you were making, one, there was no way to legally back this up, of course, because it was more or less just a word of mouth thing. Like,
I could go into Google Docs and find these hand-drawn documents that did not hold up. Yeah, I can find those. And that song, City of Angels, was the first one that we did that with. And I started using this new idea of making the videos on her page, making some on our page still, and like trying to figure it out. And that one came out the gates doing 30,000 streams a day, which was like equal to, if not slightly bigger than the biggest thing I'd ever done before. And this time,
so you were really, really pushing this.
Yeah. And this time we had a small percentage in that song too. And so I watched like the first month worth of DistroKid check. It got to 1.8 million streams in 1 month. So we didn't get to stay on it, which hurts because it now has 30 million streams. So like that,
so you said 2 million?
Yeah, which definitely hurts a bit because like
the Google Doc said the Google Doc said 2 million.
Yeah, it does. I could probably pull it up. I haven't looked at it fucking 3.5 years, but that 2 million mark in 1 month is actually so ambitious. I didn't know it at the time. Like that's
incredibly ambitious.
That's like almost 100,000 streams a day.
Yeah,
I think
that's ambitious as fuck.
And so, yeah, that one, it might have been 2 million in 2 months actually, because if it was doing 30,000 streams a day, then it was at 100 or 1.8 million. I think that's 2 months worth of 30,000 a day. And so, yeah, kind of continued with that model, and I became closer with him, closer with some of these other artists, and I was simultaneously, like, I leave out all the fluff when I'm telling these stories because I was simultaneously, it's not as cut and dry as it sounds. Like I was still trying to figure out the YouTube channel, still trying to like make these kinds of videos with artists that are like the more Yes Theory style of things that are more in depth, but it was like a one-man show. I was trying to run it all myself.
You're trying to figure out the way that these platforms interacted with each other and where everything existed and lived, and I know that. I know how that is,
And it was very cloudy, and every Live2, to me, it's not like, it's not discovering something new. It's like unearthing things that are supposed to exist the way that they are. Gotcha. Like there is a balance that is there. I just haven't dug my way into figuring it out enough.
Yeah.
And it's like when I unearth something, it makes like the map become clearer of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So during the time, I was becoming extremely stressed with everything I was trying to do. Like I was trying to go through hundreds of DMs a day and find these songs and make this sustainable and keep up with this one artist. And I didn't understand the music business, and I didn't know how to run a YouTube channel. And
you're in school.
All that. And I was still at USC. And so COVID was starting to die down a bit. I moved back to LA around this time. This is September of 2020, I think. August of 2020, something like that. And I came back with my childhood best friend who was taking a semester off of MIT. And he's like...
To come live with you in LA?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because I had been like keeping him up to date of Live2 because he found it interesting. And he and I were good friends, but we butted heads a good bit in high school because we're very different types of leaders. Like he's a great type A kind of leader who, you know... He was quarterback of the football team, was successful with that, went to MIT, was like one of the smartest guys that I know, just an all-around kind of guy.
It's so interesting because I think you're such a good leader, but in not a traditional way at all.
Yeah.
Like a very untraditional way, really.
Yeah. I'm a very quiet person, and I don't lead from the top down. I like lead from the bottom up, I feel like. Which I think, I'm okay with being on the level of everybody else, and like my ideas are the things that I hope that when I'm so passionate about them, other people like come on board with it. Which
as somebody who has subscribed to your ideas, I can say like I don't think I would have if you came from a top down perspective.
Yeah, it's
definitely a gift for sure. Like, I think people come from a top down perspective too often. They don't realize that's why no one gives a fuck about what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think his type of leadership is very conducive to very certain styles of like business. And
I wasn't talking about him.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm because this does end up in a falling out. So I want to like try to be as clear as possible that like the thing that ensued was nobody's fault. It was technically, it could only be blamed on me. I think it was like I brought in people too early, and like so the other people that got involved were a girl from USC who knew the traditional side of music industry really well, because I felt like I didn't know that.
Is she older than you?
Like a year older than me.
Oh, okay, but she just understood these things.
Yeah, because she was like studying music business at school and like very tapped in there, but in like a very traditional kind of way, which I didn't recognize even existed yet. I didn't know the difference.
You didn't know there was traditional,
non-traditional.
Yeah.
And so she came in, started to become more involved, and so did my one friend from college who also loved Yes Theory and like those sides of things. And so we started working on stuff, and over the course of about 8 months, as we were getting really frustrated with trying to figure out this thing that we were doing, this was the first attempt at really making like the brand side of Live2 like what I wanted it to be. And I realized, because I didn't know what I wanted it to be, I couldn't explain to these other people what I wanted it to be. And I knew I was going to spend the next 80 years of my life like doing this thing.
And they didn't.
Yeah. And it was like, I wanted them to be, I was like over ambitious in wanting them to understand that. And like, it wasn't time for that yet. And
Been
so,
there.
Yeah, like it can only be blamed on me, but I don't blame myself because I know why it happened, and it was like from a good place. But it like to them, I think it because I couldn't explain why I didn't want to move the way that they wanted to move. It just felt like they weren't being listened to, when really I was just like cooping myself up in my room because I didn't know how to like express, because it just wasn't clear to me yet. Yeah. And so that all kind of over the course of 8 months, as we kept doing these kind of artist deals and not having a ton of success with it, honestly, at the time, because it was getting worse and worse with the dynamic of our inner group there. It all kind of fell apart and blew up at one point where I guess in the spring of 2021, all of them told me that they were gonna leave and not be a part of it anymore. And so, I lost one of my childhood best friends and my only friend from college, and I was living in LA, and I was living with them. So they both like left for the summer, and in the same week, me and my girlfriend that had at the time like had been growing further and further apart because of my obsession with this thing, we also broke up. So it was like, I went from having my girlfriend and a couple people around me that were at least trying to figure it out to like, I didn't even know. I had 1 week where I remember I didn't know if Live2 was going to continue or not. And that was the only time that delusion barrier that we have was broken. And like, I was alone in LA. I'd been here at that point, I was a junior now. Since I was a freshman, I had no friends anymore in LA. I didn't know anybody except for a couple of these musicians and like a couple filmmakers who had kind of started coming around. And that summer became the most formative because I got to restart with all the knowledge that I had at the time. And I literally, in that 1 week, I would like go to the grocery store and just sit down in the middle of the aisle because I couldn't like keep moving. I was like so deflated by the fact that like this thing might die inside of me because I couldn't figure it out, and like I had, in my eyes at that point, like wasted so much time in a futile attempt to bring something to life that like I felt so lost for just a week.
It's interesting, not to cut you off, but like from a psychological stance, it is interesting because it's like that is like what depression is. It's like looking back and wishing that you could change things that had transpired in the past. It's a fear of the past. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it was just a fear of, because there's just so much inside of me that I know I can bring to the world. And from day one, I've been obsessed with finding the right way to bring that to the world.
Yeah.
And like that fear of, man, if I never figure this out, that's the worst thing that can possibly happen.
Yeah.
And,
I know the feeling.
Yeah. And the route that I ended up kind of dusting myself off and trying to take was, there was this one guy who had started coming around. His name was Zaid Batal. And
shout out to Zaid.
Shout out Zaid. We weren't very close yet. He had helped film maybe 2 YouTube videos at the time, and here and there the other people that were on the team at the time had him doing some other stuff and helping out. But he had emailed me about 6 months before.
And did he go to you went to USC?
No.
Or how'd you?
No, he went to community college. I forget which one. And he was from the Palisades out here, and he was like, he wanted to do something that wasn't like during COVID, just drinking with his friends. And so
and he found Live2 from
it's funny, we were actually talking about this last night or 2 nights ago. He told me the much fuller story than I had ever heard before.
You never got it?
I had gotten the story, but he went like pretty in depth this time.
Yeah.
And he had been watching, he had just seen some of the things that happened that we were doing on TikTok, and like he had watched the S30 stuff growing up and the Sam Colder stuff.
Wow.
Like all the same references basically. And he felt like he wasn't doing what he wanted to with his life, and he woke up hungover one morning during the COVID side of things, and he was like, I need to get out of the Palisades. I need to do the thing, because he's got this thing inside of him too, which he's still working on tapping into. And I'm, like with the Boone stuff, if we end up doing the Boone night thing, and he knows, I don't know, I think that would be a really cool moment that I just want to flip in here without really explaining it. But
100%.
when that comes around,
the Boone night, you will know.
Yeah, because if that's, I actually, I'll tell you on air right now for that, not to get sidetracked here by this idea.
Updates on air.
But I was talking to him, and
because I saw that text in the group chat. He said he was still trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, and when we get around to doing it, because they want to do it, but instead of you and me being the main characters in that episode, I want you and me to be side characters and Zaid to be the main character.
That's way cooler.
We tell his story of how he became a part of what we're doing, and then like honestly his story of like having so much inside of him but never knowing how to like get it out, and this is like the thing that he's like taking a shot at doing. And then also Rap Boone's story.
That is so cool. And I also think like I know we've talked about this before, not to go meeting style on this, but like I do think like the series that we're describing, I know earlier you referenced this series but didn't want to talk too much about it, so I'm not sure if you do you want me
I want to come around to it.
Okay, but just to know, without naming that series, I think that is, the episodes can be catered around other people in such cool ways. Like I think so many episodes can, like, just looking at the board, I think there's so many episodes that can be catered around other individuals and like make it more like pseudo documentaries about them.
Yeah, we can.
Which one died? Oh, this one, we're good. We have a middle.
I think he's sleeping over here.
Mario? No way he fell asleep, bro.
Does that matter with the switcher?
Ain't no way bro fell asleep right now. If he did, it's fine. I'll just put it on the middle one. We're good. But.
Okay. I wonder which camera angle it's on. That's so funny. I love this. Nice. Which camera angle was it on?
Yours, so it's fine.
Okay.
That's crazy.
That's so funny. I wonder when he fell asleep. This is hilarious.
This is crazy.
This is great, bro.
How did this happen? We've had so many moments in this.
Late night
brother.
pod.
Late night pod.
I'm sure we've already been going for 2 hours.
We're
I
an
don't know.
hour and a half in. But honestly, I don't feel bad now because he has work, but he's sleeping. So we're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, we're great.
That's crazy that Mario fell asleep. Wow, that's legendary. Shout out to Mario Sosa.
This episode would not be what it is without Mario falling asleep.
No, it literally makes it so much better. All right,
Which camera died? Do we know?
Oh, this guy. So it's good, but I just put in the middle one anyway. So we're talking both of us are on camera.
Sick. Okay. So, yes, I fully agree with you, but we'll come back to that series
Yes.
and talk about it more. But
Honestly, it's honestly a good thing. He need to sleep, bro. He works more at 5.
damn, at 5.
He's a legend. Mario will see this eventually, but I just want to say I love you so much, and I appreciate everything that you give to Above the Bridge on such a deep level, and I love you dearly.
Oh, it's so funny. I just see his hand, like, on the mouse over there, or with his pen. I think he was taking notes and fell asleep.
That's so
Damn.
great. I love it.
Honestly, a great parallel back to the story that I was telling, because this is about one of my guys that is very similar, kind of.
Yo, they actually would hella get along. Yeah, I think about
Yeah,
it.
I think
feel like
they
Zayd
would.
and Mario would get along really well.
I think so. I think it would, yeah. But anyways, so in this, to end that 1 week of depression, Zayd was pretty much the only guy left I felt like I was pretty much close enough with in LA to go grab a dinner, who like also understood some of the history, and like I don't know what really made me text him, but I was like, I basically gave him a little bit of a rundown of like, here's what happened, here's what's happened, here's why you haven't heard from me in a week, and like I don't have anybody anymore, and like I don't know if I want to quit Live2 or if it like what the next route is, but like if you're down to go get dinner, like I haven't talked to anybody in a week, like you down to go grab dinner?
How well did you know him?
Not that well, not well enough to where we would have ever had a meal before that.
So it was really a shot in the dark.
Yeah, and it was a great shot in the dark because we went there. And, you know, the first hour we were like kind of dancing around the subject, not really talking about it. And I was hearing about his life because I didn't really know him too well, and telling him a bit more about mine. And finally got around to talking about it. And once he let me talk for a little bit, he was like, because I think one of the biggest frustrations that I had, and the reason the falling out really ended up kind of occurring, was because the other members saw it as a business at the time, and I didn't see it as that. It was every dream that I wanted to bring to life. It wasn't a business. It didn't need to make money yet. It was like, you know,
like that'll come later. Let's figure it out first.
Yeah.
We don't even know what it is yet. How can it be business? Yeah.
The classic the social network kind of side of things, or whatever it was, when they're like, we don't even know what it is yet. That's truly how I felt. And I remember the sentence that, or I don't know, string of sentences that reignited the flame that had gone out, and there was just some burning embers left in there, was Zayd, after hearing me talk about that, looked at me and he was like, you know, honestly, man, like Live2 was never a business to me. Like I don't care about it being a business. He was like, Live2 to me was supposed to be cool people doing cool shit and not caring about anything else. Like I just wanted to bring these dreams and visions to life. And like, I think I had spent so long without feeling like anybody else understood that I had let that like hope die that that's what it could be. And that was the single like spark that everything else was built on top of, again, with what I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, if Zayd can believe in this and like hardly knows me, but he understood that was the idea of it.
Yeah.
Then I think that we can do this.
It's like the idea that like if this is propelling enough and compelling enough to get to this point where like this person who I barely know believes in it, then there has to be something here.
Yeah. And so that reignited everything inside of me.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed again, like quickly. Because I didn't want to lose that obsession. And it was honestly the only thing that I had. So it was pretty easy to get back into. But yeah, it had been dead.
How long did you feel like you were out of it?
Literally a week, maybe 2.
Okay,
I think that was it. And, you know, I was still sad as fuck about everything that had happened, but, like, my outlet once again became bringing this vision to life.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, throughout that year, as things got worse and worse, and because of COVID, and Im was very, like, sensitive to COVID, like, she would never go out of her house, but COVID was kind of ending now. And I just so happened, like, that week or so, because we had only done City of Angels together at that point.
Yeah.
And we had her out to this mountaintop concert thing that we did with only
just public video
we
up.
just republic the video, and it was crazy. We had Noah Guy there. We had
Whoa.
I
don't know.
We had Im. We had Devin again before she released any music.
Wow.
We had Sabrina Jordan, who was having like her first like kind of moment thing happen now. We had Playard, who one of the members of Playard, they were like good friends of Zayd, but now one of them has had like the big last 2 years or so of a run. So we had, I don't know, it was pretty stacked, but nobody was known at the time. And
I didn't know a guy had ties to both original or Live2 at all.
Yeah, I was talking to him a long time ago.
Cool.
And so, yeah, Im had been there. That was the first time that we had, I think, met in person, actually.
Okay, yeah.
And she hit me up the following week after that dinner, being like, hey, I have this song, Groundhog Day. And she had posted one video on TikTok that had connected well. And she was like, I don't know where to take it from here. Like, you want to come back on and do another song? And I was like, let's run it. I got nothing else to do. Let's fucking go. And that campaign, this time, that song coming out in, I think, May of 2021 or so. This time it came out the gates doing 100,000 streams a day.
Holy shit.
And she had no lawyer. She had just gotten rid of her previous manager, who was not, I don't want to talk ill of people, but he didn't know what perhaps he was doing, we believe. And no label. Like, yeah, no lawyer, no manager, no label. It was just me and her. We ran that thing together. It came out doing 100,000 streams a day through DistroKid, like no distributor, nothing, no marketing budget. It was just me with a camera and her telling these stories. And this was the first time I was very close to a project and actually had a percentage in a project that had started to do that level of something.
Yeah.
And over the course of a month, and we'd only worked on like 2 songs together, but it was very clear, like, we had this powerful dynamic when we worked together, that we worked very well together and had fun doing it, and it was a cool thing. But over the course of the month, the business side of the industry kind of got very involved. She got a manager, got a lawyer, got a label, and they all turned around and looked at me owning a small percentage in that song, and they were like, what the fuck is this guy with a camera doing here? Like, this is not right. This is not what we know. Yeah, this is not what we know.
We have not heard of this before.
And so those paper napkin deals did not particularly hold up.
The Google Doc went right out the window.
As Daddy Republic got involved, it very quickly went out the window. And I just kind of had to swallow that. And, that was okay. It was a cool thing happening. And we had people looking at us now trying to figure out what we were, which I thought was pretty cool. Obviously, I wanted to stay involved, but the powers were above my head at this point, and there was nothing I could do. And she was now the new kid on the block at Republic. And again, this is not as cut and dry as it's going to be made out to sound, but pretty soon thereafter, she posted another video to a new song, and this one also had a spark. And I was like, well, you're a new kid on the block. Like, we'll do this last song with you, even though we can't, like, participate in it.
Yeah, like financially.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to do it as homies. And so kind of promised her that, and we ran that last one together. But her deal with Republic, because she posted that snippet that did some crazy shit in August of 2021.
Of Groundhog Day?
No, this is Numb Little Bug now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she posted a snippet of Numb Little Bug in August of 2021. And then her hands were tied from posting anything else for 6 months around that song. I know now, looking back at it, Republic didn't want her to have any more leverage in the deal that they were trying to close.
Yes.
But like at the time, I
how
didn't
do you
know that.
see? Like, I know that labels do this, but this is something I don't know a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
How do they word that? Because they can't tell M that we don't want you to have any more leverage. But what do they?
Yeah, and I honestly don't know. I think that her new management that came on wanted the power of Republic behind the thing when it was ready to come out. Like, the song wasn't done yet, so they were like working on the song. So I think it was being told to her, like, let's wait until this song is done before we post anything else with it and all that. Which I get, but also I don't know. It was an interesting move in my opinion.
But who is keeping her from doing that?
I think it was a mixture between her manager wanting the song to be done, and the label both wanting the song to be done, have like a plan for it, and also not wanting her to have more leverage. I think it was a mixture of all those things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all that power is above my head. Like, I hadn't even met her manager yet at this point.
Yeah.
And so I needed something to do. So that's when I re-picked up a camera and tried the YouTube side of things a little bit more. And that's when I started that series that I called the Backyard Showcase series. And so it was this concept of trying to make a documentary about each show that we were throwing, and telling the story of trying to throw a bigger and bigger show every single time, and like how we were going to do it. And that ethos of like telling the story of doing something dope and using the fact that we told the story to make it even doper the next time, was like very core to Live2. And that series was like the first one that I felt like it took everything I had to execute that thing. Like, I was shooting it, I was editing a lot of it, I was making all the short form out of it, I was throwing the concert, I was doing everything.
Yeah.
And
that's a question I do want to ask you in a little bit, but like that is very interesting to me, the idea of like not only building the thing but telling the story of building the thing.
Yeah. I've just always been obsessed with that idea.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
It's the peak of like, I mean, I obviously want to do cool shit, but then I want to be able to both look back at it myself and do cool shit, and also put out this idea into the world of like, this is what it takes to do cool shit. If you also, because other people that want to do cool things can get behind this, and like, I had always wished, I think it was like my personal desire to see somebody else make something that I could follow along with the story of, that like they're telling the story along the way of how they did it. And that's like, because for somebody that has so much inside of them that they don't want to die, like watching somebody else go through those same struggles and like be very honest about it, and not like, you know, not just do only a podcast like this where they're just hitting even though it's going to be a 4-hour podcast or whatever the fuck it is, like I still can't touch upon 99% of the things that I went through. Like,
yeah, of course. There's 5 years of time.
Yeah. So at least in those videos, you get, you know, maybe a 10% glance at everything instead of a 1% glance at everything.
Yeah.
And so, I started doing those throughout the August up until like December of 2021. I did 3 of those that did get bigger and bigger, and I got better at making those videos with, I should say at this point now a team was starting to form again from the ground up, like the brick by brick. Now, because people like Zayd had started to see what we were doing and like care about it from the outside looking in.
Because they saw the Numb Little Bug happening, they saw the Groundhog Day happening, and
well, not a lot of people associated us with M yet. Like,
because you were making videos on her page.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But enough people had seen what I was doing on the Live2 page, and I was telling those stories through a DSLR and like making them at least look decent enough to where filmmakers were like, okay, he's like trying to make cinematic stuff. And so there were a lot of other kids that, because the downfall of being a cinematic videographer on TikTok is you make 0 money.
Yeah.
Like we know plenty of people that have hundreds of thousands of followers making dope ass videos that can't even pay their rent at the end of the month. No. And so I basically was thrown into becoming friends with pretty much all of them, because I was doing the same shit, but at least mine had the backbone of like, the artist that I was telling stories about then could go on to make millions of dollars, and it was like there was something tangible there. And so I was calling up everybody I was becoming friends with, like, yo, just trying to sell them on this idea of like, we can discover artists. Like nobody else has the power anymore. We can discover artists. It's the dopest thing ever. Like come get a part of this. And people were starting to come around. Like Zay Merigian, he was in Chapman Film School at the time. He had started making some videos on TikTok that I saw. First time I called him, he thought it was a scam. And that's a funny story. But
that's crazy.
he actually came around and made the Groundhog Day music video.
Okay.
That summer. And that was the first time that he and Zayd met on that set. And I don't know, just this filmmaker group had started to form. So through this series, it was the first time that this filmmaker group, like in person with these events, as you've seen with Above the Bridge stuff, it's like the world slightly comes to life a little bit at these events.
Yeah.
And it's like people like, while they might not get it if you're just trying to tell them this thing, or they get it a little bit, all of a sudden like enough of it opens up to where they can see the future.
Yeah.
And they can see what that community feels like.
And they don't know what it is, but they know it's big and they know it matters.
Yeah. And so these guys that had started to buy into the thing that I was passionate about came to these things and became like the film crew behind that like little documentary that we're making each time. And by being a part of that story, they were just bought in at that point.
Yeah.
And so this new friend group started forming around new musicians that we were discovering and throwing these shows with, and these filmmakers that were coming on board. Several of them started dropping out of film school and moving closer to USC. Like for a year there, for that year, which is now my technical senior year, I had a fifth year at USC because I took too few classes each semester because of all this stuff.
So this is the time where you're throwing the backyard shows, and then because of that, filmmakers are coming around because you're talking to them or whatever, and then they're coming and they're realizing the power around this because there's this little bit of a community forming.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, this is real.
Yeah. And everybody had always felt locked in their bedrooms, like maybe their parents didn't get what they were trying to do, maybe their friends never got what they were trying to do. They never had a community of people that were trying to do this thing. And so very quickly, like people were literally like dropping out of school, moving across, like maybe this was the first time they had ever moved out of their parents' house. And they were like, there was that year where like 4 or 5 people, like filmmakers or people involved, moved into a house 2 streets down from mine at USC, and none of them went to USC except for me. And like I was in my house going to school, but then going over there after.
And suddenly you had friends again.
Yeah, and suddenly now I had friends who both loved and respected what I was trying to do, and like respected my brain for what the vision of it all was.
Now, were those calls, or were those friendships made mostly just through those like you coldly reaching out and like hitting like a? Yeah, I know you fell asleep.
Yeah.
Don't go on. We're like, do you want to hop on the switcher? Oh fuck. Were those friendships mostly made through like you just randomly calling people? Like would you randomly call them and then like through that eventually somehow like you became friends with them because they came involved and they just realized what you were doing and realized what was special?
Yeah. I would DM them. If they responded, I would ask to hop on a call because I knew it was too crazy to text off the idea. And I would hop on about an hour call with them and pitch them on this huge vision of what it was. And if it resonated with them, which I got very good at doing over the course of hundreds of these phone calls, and if they were bought in enough, they would come to one thing. If they came to one thing, then they saw what it was, and then it was game over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how that friend group formed. And yeah, those shows were very pivotal. It was the first time like the idea of what Live2 was becoming more and more clear in my brain, and I started to see that there was like an event side to it. There was this production company side of things, like starting the music video side of things.
And you were like, that's why it didn't make sense. Like it didn't make sense because there was like a bunch of different things going on at once, and like it wasn't one business, it was a bunch.
Yeah. And up until then I'd always thought it was one company, but it was not one company. It was like it was an umbrella, it was a vision, it was an idea, it was a logo that represented something, but underneath that there are now, at least in my head, 4 fully formed companies that will eventually, I believe, become hundreds. And once I started to see it that way, I knew I had a lot more structuring to go, because it's like nobody else understood that yet. Still, maybe only a couple people understand that. too many people think that Live2 is one company.
Yeah.
And that annoys the fuck out of me, but that's the thing that drives me and keeps me going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in realizing that, we just had a lot more to go on that. And I realized there was like this network side of things that that's what these YouTube videos really needed to be.
And do you think that's why people were getting invested? Was because they were, the live events and then the video or the YouTube side of things, and then you were like, that was what people are buying in because of this. But they might find it from TikTok, but they're buying in because of this.
Yeah, for sure. Like the bigger vision is what people bought into, and like you've said before, like the reason that you bought in is because you didn't understand it, but you felt that there was something there.
I didn't get it.
Yeah,
and that was why I cared.
Yeah, and so it's just always felt like there's so much here. And I think people were buying into that. So yeah, we threw those shows, and basically that led up to February of 2022 when we threw the fourth one of those shows. And throughout January of 2022 was when we were finally, the song Numb Little Bug was done, and we were able to run that campaign. And this is when we officially launched our music video production company as well. And so Republic was going to give us $5,000 to make the music video for Numb Little Bug. And like at the beginning of the month, that was what, like January 1st, that was the conversation. And then we ran the campaign throughout January, which they were trying to pay us, they were going to pay us $2,000 for the campaign that we were running. And I never ended up invoicing because by the end of it, it felt like getting spit on in order to do that.
It's like getting spit on, like smacked in the face, and then like someone like hawking a loogie in your eye. Like,
yeah, because like not only had they not honored our contracts beforehand, and that had never been brought up, which is nobody's particular fault. Things just move quickly, and like that was just the way that things had to be. But that really sucked, and was something and like Im was one of my best friends now at the time, because she and I had become very close, and like in that time after the fallout, it was me, Zayd, and her that became very close, and then Isaiah kind of got more involved, and that was the core of the friend group. Yeah. And so it's like one of my best friends who we had a really great thing going. We both knew it. And then she got swept into this whole thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, but they were going to give our production company a shot at doing the music video, which was going to be, we had done the Groundhog Day music video, and we had done a couple other fun things for the YouTube video, but nothing like serious like this. And so throughout January, we ran that campaign, and this time we just smacked it out of the park. Like by the end of the month, the song had 100,000 pre-saves, which broke like records at the label. It was like
100,000 pre-saves?
Yeah, so 100,000 people clicked on the link in her bio to go pre-save
Crazy.
It. And we made the music video at the beginning of the month. We pulled every favor in the book. I watched it for the first time at her house, because I think Zay like deleted the video or something like that because he was so upset about this. It was a whole fucking thing for a little bit.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That is punk as fuck. That is so far that he did that.
She has
He said, "Fuck you, Republic." Delete. That is so hard.
She has like the almost like uncolored final version of it. And we watched it for the first time, and it was like way better than I remember. It's actually really.
When did you watch this?
A couple days ago.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
At Em's house?
I was at her house, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so a week before this video was supposed to come out, I get a call, and they tell me that the video is being pulled from us. They're not going to release our version, and they're going to give another production company, I later learned, $40,000 to make a very like not our like, because the reason our video was cool is because it had all of her best friends in it, and
That's
the people
sick.
that made it, and it was like, true to the culture of like what we were doing and all of that, and like it was a very solid video. It was just slightly grungier and slightly darker than the label wanted, and like it was now going to be very clearly like one of the biggest songs of the year, and they were like, sorry. And so yeah, that happened, and the song came out, and there's a vlog of this up of the day that it came out on the Live2 YouTube channel. I was with her
because you knew it was going to be such a crazy day because it was the pre-saves and
I didn't know it was going to be this crazy though.
Oh,
like
okay.
I thought my best guess was like 200,000 streams in the first day or something like that. And I remember that night it got up to 4,000 people listening at once to the song. And it would, like, on Spotify for artists, it'll like vibrate every time that the thing like updates, and it would update like 1,000 streams at a time. And so by the afternoon of the next day, it had reached 1 million streams. Yeah, 1 million in like, less than 24 hours.
In like 12 hours.
Yeah. And
wow.
You know, that was it was a wild feeling. And it, over the next couple months, became it was number 1 on top 40 radio. It peaked at like maybe 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was like on today's
peaked
top
at 10?
hits. Yeah, something like that. It was like a very large song, and it stayed in the top 100 songs for the entire year, basically.
Jesus.
And so, yeah, that was a crazy, like, anomaly of a time. And so that happened, and also in February, that same month was when we threw the 4th showcase, which was with AG Club at the skate park. And so
how did that come about? So like, because that like that time period, so you, like, the M thing happens, crazy things ever happen, and then you get to this AG show. How did that happen?
I used the storyline, because this is where telling the story comes in handy. It's like, it's the best pitch that you can possibly have, because you're like, here's how fucking cool the last one was that we did. Like, don't just look at a recap video. Look at, like, the hard work that it took to pull it off, the ethos that it stands for, everything behind it. Like, here are the characters. You can be a part of it. Like, you know, everything, it becomes 10 times, 100 times cooler.
Which is everything we talk about with the series that we keep referencing. But it's like it all aligns. Yeah.
And so somebody introduced me to, I think it was actually the Nectar Hard Seltzer guy.
Wow. Okay.
Which was the other podcast that I've been on like 2 years ago.
Shouts out to Nectar Hard Seltzer.
Shout out. He introduced me to John, the AG Club's like day-to-day manager. He's day-to-day. Yeah. And I met up with him, showed him the video, pitched him the story, and he was like, yeah, I think that they would like be down for it. And so they didn't even, like, to this day, John and Jody still don't know what Live2 is, which is definitely like, it's such a personal like grudge I have with myself for not like doing this better at the time.
Like the conversion of like going to a show.
Right. Like they played the show and still don't know what Live2 is, or like what the storyline really was.
Like it wasn't apparent enough.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, they might watch this, so.
Yeah. It was like it was such a cool night, and the show, I don't know, everything that they do is obviously sick, but like it felt really special for what everything was.
And how long after Numb Little Bug coming out did this happen?
I think it was like that week.
Jesus
and also,
Christ.
I've been talking to Alan Haley, who had not released anything yet, and
he
had
that one time was really big.
Yeah,
you don't know that one, right? Yeah.
So that was the song that we worked on with him. And so I was the one that convinced him to to release the song and to put it out. So I convinced him at the same time to come out and play in that AG Club show. He was like one of the openers, and we made a music video with him that week that also came out to that song. So all those things happened at once, and all of a sudden, like, we went from like nobody knowing what the fuck Live2 actually was to like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff happening, and people still didn't know what it was, but like there was stuff there to look at. And that's when.
So at this point, I think like this is very valuable for people who are like watching to this point. Like, what? This was year 4, right? When all these things happened, all these stars aligned, and all these successes happened in that 1 week period. It was year 4.
This was the beginning. This is like year 3.5, I think.
So I mean, I just think that's important for anybody to realize, because people give up on things after an hour. So it's just like you should be waiting for that.
Right.
And I'm not saying bank on it, but I'm saying like you need to be willing to give enough of your life for something to where like that lines up.
Like the first year, I didn't even know what to be obsessed with. Like, I could only work on it for 30 minutes a day because like there just wasn't enough to work on, which is a huge problem that I think frustrates a lot of people. I think a lot of people have that ambition to like get to the point where they could do something nonstop.
Yeah.
But like they don't think about it the next day after doing it for 30 minutes the day before. So you have to like convince yourself to do it each time, which is a huge blocker from becoming that. But yes, so that happened. Then every SVP of A&R at most of the major labels, like I went and had lunches with and told them about what we were doing. Some of them got it, some of them didn't. A lot of them wanted to like sign some kind of artist with us or do a project with us here or there. It was clear that not many people understood why what we were doing was cool, but they saw that it was working, and so they wanted to like hop on it. But every time we went down that path, it ended up looking like an 80-20 deal, and like was not something I wanted to present to the artists. So
do you feel like you understood the music industry at all at this point?
I was starting to pick up a good bit on it. Like it had kind of been a very brutal awakening over the last little bit of what it was, and it put a chip on my shoulder of like, okay, now these motherfuckers are gonna get it. Like I'm gonna fucking so I also remembered back to Groundhog Day, and I was like, all right, that campaign was maybe a quarter, if not a tenth, as successful as this other one. Like the actual like viewership and the storyline and all of that, and it was doing 100,000 streams a day without any of these guys on it. And like now they're taking everything from us. We have no money to really work with. Like, why do I need them? Like, we don't. And that had always been like the idea, but I didn't have the physical proof of it until like those things happened. And so I went back and I was like, well, if they're going to keep doing these shitty deals for artists, like we're just going to do it ourselves. Yeah. And so that's when the Indify side of things, like these guys start up out of New York, very cool thing. I won't go down the tangent of, but if you're an independent artist, like looking for a way to do equitable short-term deals that like do not look like 80-20 splits, and you want some help building your stuff and like a stepping stone in the right direction, doing stuff through the guys at Indify and the partners on board with that is a great potential outlet for those things.
Did you find Indify, or did they find you?
They found me, and I didn't get it for a while until I hopped on a call with them finally. They had been like trying to talk to me for like
How did they
6
find
months.
you?
I really don't remember.
But like they had saw like, oh, this kid's doing something entirely untraditional, very in tune with the ethos of Indify. Like the idea of like, you know, trying to find these alternative deal structures that are progressive and yada yada whatever. But like,
I think that they had been watching from the outside, and Shav, the CEO and one of the 3 founders, like had been hitting me up a little bit, and we hopped on a call at some point, and he walked me through what they were actually building there and how it could actually help structure these things the right way to where, you know, it balanced all the wants and needs of all the people, and it did it very well. And we were able to start doing these independent deals where we acted like what labels should be in a way. We're like a very dumbed down version on all the sides that labels claim are important, that don't actually, like, they don't know how to break songs anymore. We will, if we're unsuccessful, we will do nothing for a song, but if we are successful, we will be 100 times more effective than a label. Yeah. And like a label can either, like, if they are successful and they do everything that they can possibly do on their own end, it'll be like 3 times as good as if they weren't even there in the first place. Yes, like that's about it. 100%. And so it's taking what we do and then throwing like the really big picture stuff, the fuel on the fire from them is when it becomes really huge. But you can, I honestly, I still don't know what our top number, like I don't know what Numb Little Bug would have done if Republic wasn't on it. I think it would probably be about a fourth as big, maybe 60, 70 million streams instead of about 300 million or so.
If Republic wasn't on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it wouldn't have got, like, they spent a lot of money getting it to number 1 on radio. Like, there's very clear things that they did, but like,
it's like
independently, it could have been a very big song.
It's like if a song gets to that point, then they will put resources into you, but only then will they do it. If it doesn't get to that point, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, like, we're not going to sign away our lives at the beginning when we can get them to this point at least, and like either use the resources that we're getting from getting to that point to build the rest to knock down those further doors, or in the short term, get it to that point, then partner with somebody when we have way more, you know, the whole thing. So we started doing that. That's when I started talking to Pertinence. That's when I started talking to Noah Flourish a good bit more.
And when was this? That was
March of 2022.
okay.
A year and a half ago. Yeah. And I was just like starting over with these new artists, and I started this idea of like I was still very frustrated with the way that things had to end with M, and I was like, we were just getting started, and I think we could have gotten M to like a very, very strong 5 million monthly listeners independently, and like built a very, very strong, sturdy fan base behind it that like really cared about her. But we had that opportunity ripped away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I started theorizing on like these, like what is the best way to build this? Because I was done with making videos myself behind these artists. I was like, how do I structure these systems behind the scenes to like really do it right and do it in a way that like is sustainable, is true to the art, can have the reach that it needs to, and like just the biggest thing is figuring out how to avoid burnout and still make it like a profitable kind of thing.
Yes.
And so I was theorizing a lot. I'm not going to get into like the specifics of exactly how I've structured that, but I really slowly started to figure it out around these new artists, Pertinence and Noah. And you know, being independent, we had almost no money to put into it, so it's been a huge like gotta become a little bit more successful with them, then have a little bit more money, and then put a little bit more money in, and then become a little bit more successful, and like climbing up that ladder. But over the last year and a half, we did that pretty successfully.
How'd you find Noah and Pert? I actually know how you found Pert, kind of, but I actually don't know how you found Noah.
Noah had, I think.
Oh wait, no, you guess I do, but tell it anyway.
Yeah, he sent me his song when the playlist stuff was happening in 2020.
Yeah.
I put his song On Your Mind on the playlist, and that song had like because there was a time when putting a song on the playlist would jump up the number of streams per day by like 5,000 or so, and that was enough to like kick things into the Spotify algorithm if it was really good. So that song then caught like a wave of Spotify algorithm and really jumped up, is at least what he's told me. But we had one phone call back then, and then Mitchell, came on as one of our filmmakers and a producer for quite a while, and he's doing his own thing now, but we're still good friends. He went to college with Noah and like reintroduced me to Noah when, like after the Numb Little Bug stuff and when we were looking for new artists again.
What about Pert?
Pert had messaged me at the end of 2021. I didn't see it. No, at the beginning of 2021. I didn't see it until I saw a video of his on TikTok, like to one of his first songs that started to do something. I went to message him, and he had already messaged me. Like a year later, I saw that. And then I was coming home from spring break with my family, and again, I was like too impatient to wait for him to respond to my thing, so I just FaceTimed him through Instagram, and we talked for like 4 hours during my layover in the airport. And he was pretty quickly sold on the whole ethos and vision of what we were doing, so he got more and more involved. And we started like independently releasing stuff. Pert lived in Arizona, Noah lived in Nashville, so I was like basically on phone calls with them as I was finishing out my senior year of high school, and I was coaching them through how to make these videos themselves at home, to the point where they became successful enough off the back of that to quit their jobs. Pert was able to move out here. We had started to like come up with this idea of Storybook Life. I structured out the systems with filmmakers to be a lot more coherent in how it was going to be sustainable. And I finally drew that thing on the back of that whiteboard over there, which was our bubble chart of, because finally it was clear to me, we had thrown shows, I had made stuff for the network, I had started to develop artists, and we had started the music video production company, and like all of the elements were now clear to me and where they existed and how they interacted. And then it was time to just start grinding on building that, and that's what I've been doing for I guess a year now. And we started an office out of our last house that we lived in with PM Beta, like one of the first artists. Like he had moved out here, took a deal with 300 Entertainment. Eventually that didn't pan out the way that he wanted to. He went independent again, but he was living with us. Pertinence was living in my room. Multiple, like Zayd and Zay were living there, and a cast of
When
other
did you move into that
characters.
house?
Right after my senior year, so this is
Okay.
this is a year and a quarter ago.
And y'all were only there for like a year, right?
Yeah, we were there for 1 year. And yeah, there were at times like Noah was crashing on the couch, Pert was crashing on the couch at the same time, and Chasen was there for the summer too. So it was like a crew of artists, and then it was a 6-bedroom house, but we had 10 people living there at once for like a couple weeks at a time. And yeah, we just grinded to like start this vision and kept doing these deals until a couple things like really connected and hit. And more filmmakers. I was like taking as many calls as I could with filmmakers to get them on board, and we still need more filmmakers. Like we have dozens of them, but like we need more. And yeah, people started coming through that place. I started an office out of there that we would meet at once a week. And
how are you finding the like at this time, like, you know, when you're at the old house, where were you finding most of these filmmakers?
Still on TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a much more mature TikTok now, but the
app changed a lot at this point.
Yeah, I like trained my algorithm then to like look for filmmakers. So
Trained my algorithm.
Yeah, like very purposefully like seeking out those things so that it would feed me those things. And yeah, so started building a bigger and bigger crew, and really started to flesh out this the vision that I laid out on that whiteboard, which I can send you a picture of if you want to insert it in here.
I could just take a picture of it. It's
yeah,
right there.
true. It is. It lives in your office.
Yeah.
I forgot that. So yeah, that started happening, and slowly these artists finally started to become characters inside of this cinematic universe that was built around the stories of these filmmakers telling the stories of those artists. And we started to see that there's a clear-cut difference between the production company and the network and the artist development wing and the events wing, and like that's what we've been building out. Did that successfully at that last house, moved out of there, continued building around these artists, and now starting from scratch with a couple of new artists, and met you. And you know, you came in at a great point because I finally clearly understood the vision of what we were trying to do, and it was pretty clear like I needed help on this network side of things, which brings us into this room here, because this is the room where the network is being born. Like we're 5 years in, and a very, very key element of Live2 is finally being born out of here that I tried to give birth to like multiple times unsuccessfully in the past. And like the backyard concert series was like a futile attempt at making something. It was very important in what it was, but it was not going to be like successful in the way, like a sustainable way. But now we're trying to build that exact same thing sustainably around these shows that you know so well, and we've referred to a couple of them. And that is that this network at the center is the forward-facing brand side of Live2 that is like the heartbeat of everything, and like everything interacts through this one network basically. Yeah, and that it leads us to, we're doing a couple office days a week out of this office or this garage studio. And yeah, I don't know, you joined on 4 months ago, and since then I think we've structured it quite well, and like we've gotten to a much better place, and I consider this kind of like our pilot episode season of these first 3 shows that we're really trying to launch. And hopefully the goal is in the early bit of the new year that we get to the point where they're all in sustainable system flows, and we have finally, after 5 years, I can like take a deep breath because people actually understand what Live2 is trying to be in some kind of a way through these shows. Yeah, and here we are. How long did that take?
2 hours and 18 minutes.
Have you been timing it?
It says right there.
Oh, nice. Damn,
You can't see it.
Longest podcast.
You can't see it. Only I can.
How long was your longest podcast so far?
I really don't know. I do think it was Estelle's, the one that comes to mind. It's like 2 hours and 2 minutes or something like that.
Oh, so we're already past it?
Yeah, that's the one that comes to mind.
Mm.
I don't know if there's been longer, but I think that may be the longest one.
Yeah.
So yeah, well now this one is, but yeah, okay.
Damn.
First question.
I feel like we just got started.
So question number 1.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, but to hear the way that it's like led up to now.
Mm-hmm. And also, if Mario has to go to sleep, then like if he wants to just leave it on the middle,
yeah,
one
that's
and,
totally
like,
fine.
I'm totally fine with that. Like,
Mario, are you asleep or awake? You can totally go to bed and just leave it on number 2 if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweet.
Thanks,
boss.
Love you.
Love you, buddy.
Podcast producing moments there.
This is very fitting for what this is.
Very meta. Yeah, I know. This is the only way it could work. Okay, so that was 5 years of history told in 2 minutes and 19 seconds.
2 hours.
2 hours and 19 seconds.
I wish it was 2 minutes.
Yeah, not 2 minutes. 2 hours and 19 seconds. So you get to this point, and right now we're doing out of this garage so much, so often, every 2 days a week, but realistically in both of our lives, it's like more like every day.
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest challenges you've run into so far with the new version of what you're trying to make the network, and what do you think you understand now that you didn't understand when you initially tried to launch this network? Like, what are the biggest things that you're understanding now in this moment that you previously did not?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. The most difficult thing is the patience, as it always have been, like having to be extremely, and like over the course of time I've become very well adept to like what individuals can, even if they're inspired by something or passionate about something, what they're able to actually sustainably handle me putting on their plate. And like we've talked about this a good bit, the thing that I've really learned of how to be able to like build these things in the time where everybody's doing it as a passion project. Like Live2's got 25 people that Live2 is basically their passion project. Yeah.
20% of 20 people is what you always say.
Yeah. And so there's people are only like they're only able to afford to give us 20% of their time because everybody's broke. They all have to like have their jobs. Yeah. They have to make ends meet. They're building their own things on for them too, and like so I don't expect to have a lot of people's full attention. And so I think the big difficulty is like it's a very, very big concept that we're trying to build. Yeah. It takes a large amount of like everybody being on the same page in order to build it. And so it's like with 20% of everybody's time, I have to figure out how to get them to understand everything that's trying to happen here. Because if everybody got it, then we have enough people to where we could really do it really quickly.
Totally,
but
yeah.
Getting them on the same page with doing it, because like I see for the most, there's tons of things I'm still learning as we're going, but like I see for the most part what needs to exist. It's like if everybody saw that, we could do it pretty quickly. So yeah, trying to teach them those things is a huge thing. But I'd say one of the biggest things that I've learned of how to keep them around and like passionate about it is to not force my vision for things heavily on to anybody. And instead, when I'm first talking to people, the huge thing is like listening to them, hearing about what they are truly passionate about. And then Live2 should be a vehicle for them to be able to reach the thing that they are truly passionate about, and like provide a home for them that allows them to be able to do those things and like be okay with the fact that people can use it as a jumping off point to go on to their next thing. Because I do believe that like, some people can use it from step 1 to step 2 and jump off there to do their thing that they've always wanted to do. But Live2 can keep going from step 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and be this like slowly building bigger and bigger community that like can be a re-landing point for people. Like I've seen people like launched off into their own things, do a lot of stuff, and then Live2 like catch back up with them in some kind of way, and it like re-collides. And so it's not like when people jump on board, I feel like we need to keep them anymore. I don't feel like we have to. It's like
but how do you get over the ego of accepting the fact that like
like, well, this is hard. Like how do you get to the point where it's like you realize that like Live2, well, I know how you're getting here, but it's very egoistic knowledge. Like Live2 is behind this person right now, but then like when they get to a certain point, Live2 will be bigger than them, and then they want to be a part of it because it's bigger than them. Is that like it's hard in my head sometimes to get past the point where like that's not like disloyal of them at all. That's not disloyal. That's just reality. It's just like
everybody's doing what they have to do to get by and
that
like,
was
do their vision. Like everybody's passionate about something. Like whether or not they've spent 5 years like fully developing exactly what that thing is, or if they're like just seeking it out now. But I know what it feels like to be doing stuff that doesn't align with something that you feel like aligns with what you want to be doing.
But I think it's so cool when you understand that like somebody thought more of what you're doing than you originally thought they did. Like there's a moment we had with a filmmaker who didn't know he was getting paid for a project, and it was a huge project, like a gigantic project, and he had no idea he was getting paid like a good amount of money. Like he had no idea he was getting paid for it, and then McClain like brought up like it was like an invoice or something, and then he was like, "What?" And he was like, "I'm getting paid for this," and it was like a big project.
Yeah, that was such a cool moment.
That was crazy.
And yeah, he later expressed to me like how big of a deal it will be when he can tell his mom the fact that he's like getting paid to do a video at this magnitude, and he expressed how much it like meant to him.
Has that been crazy for your parents to comprehend the fact that you're giving people opportunities now? I think, I don't know, I don't want to like toot my own horn in any kind of way, but I think that like them watching Talk
me
your
do,
shit,
like, do the metal detecting and watching all my friends get involved, and then watching the trick shot channel, watching all my friends get involved, and how like they've seen it, I think, to where they probably saw something like this coming along. They might not have known what it was going to be, but I think that I don't think that they've never necessarily been surprised by what I'm doing, and they've always been extremely supportive and believe in it. And I'm very, very thankful for that, because it would be very difficult if they didn't. So yeah, that's that. There was something I thought of that I can't remember what we were
building network and people who get it, people jumping off at certain points.
Oh yeah, that's probably it. That's probably it. Yeah, I think I don't know. I want to talk more on that because there's more I have to say, but let me formulate my words for a second. I think that it's just the truth and the reality that needs to be accepted, that there's something beautiful about the fact that it can be a vehicle of success for people, and that's what it's supposed to be. Like, it's supposed to be a dream factory, you know? It's like something that everybody's dream can come true through. Yeah. And that is what is supposed, like, that is to the core, the ethos of it. Like, it's not just my dream. It's supposed to be a culmination of everybody's dream, and my dream is bringing everybody's dream to life. That's like been Live2 since that day on the garage. Yeah. And so, you know, if there's a director out there that needs funding for a movie, and like, you know, one day I would like to be able to fund their movie and like use the network side of things, hopefully having the reach to be able to launch that movie with them and not needing to go through anything else, and like we can do it all independently. Like, or, you know, if Pert wants to start a candy factory or whatever it is, or we want to start Live2 Land, and every single artist has their own world inside of it and has their own store inside of it that is perfectly curated to whatever the dream is, it is supposed to be a factory for those dreams. And I have to accept, begrudgingly, the fact that like Live2 needs to get to a certain point before I can make everybody's dreams come true. Yeah, which is like, hard, because you want to make it happen now. Yeah, it's like the jumping off point is when it gets to a point where Live2 can no longer help bring that dream to life, and I need to earn through building Live2 the time and place to where Live2 can bring any dream to life to any level. And it's like, if it's not there yet, I just have to accept the fact that it's time for them to go on, and I keep going.
And maybe there's a point too where like part of the dream is working with Live2. Like part of the dream is like, oh, I would love to like do a production for Live2 one day, you know, because there's companies like that we talk about all the time. It's like, you know, maybe that becomes part of the dream. Like just doing the thing with Live2 does become part of what these people are shooting for, which inherently is such a cool like direct circle thing.
Yeah, and the home, like being a home factor is the way that we would be nothing without the people inside of it that believe in it. And I believe the reason that so many people believe in it is because there's never been a place that feels like a home to them where other people around them want to support them and try to understand them. And like these office days in here, they don't feel like office days. They feel like there have very clearly been times where we're laying around and I think of like that Renaissance painting of like Plato's Academy, of like philosophers sitting around in their robes in ancient Greece or whatever. And like, I want it to be like a Plato's Academy for everybody who's always been chronically online and nobody's ever understood them, that they can come and like, in a time when the world has become so individualized because of these algorithms and down these echo chambers where you can't relate to anybody else. It's like, finally we have a place where we can come and talk to others who understand and want to be a part of something.
And even the short time of like we've been doing these office days, like the people that have been coming around, it's like we've seen like individuals grow since we started working with them. Yeah, which is really cool to me. Like there's people who I'm thinking of that like, you know, that are very involved with like the network that we're building right now. That like they very much like were not this big of a part of it when they first started, but like over the past like 4 to 5 months they've become way more involved, and like they've become like they've bought in more because they've seen the crazy things that we've been able to accomplish in the last like, you know, 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, sometimes we get to feel like the Mad Hatter running around with like crazy ideas, and it's so fun. Watching people be won over one at a time by like you know, every single time I feel like a huge way that this community has come together is because like it gets to a point where it's like, okay, I need to show people, I need to double down, believe in myself, and by doing so, in this time where there's a trial that we're going through, people will see like the mentality that we have, and like they will naturally follow. And like there are definitely very specific like Showcase 3 falling apart, the headliner pulling out 4 days before the show, and everybody on the team very publicly knowing that was happening, and me documenting myself trying to put it back together, and like ending up achieving that and throwing the best show that we had so far in front of everybody that was watching. Like they're like, oh shit, he's gonna get this stuff done and like make it sick and like believe in himself, and so therefore I am gonna believe in myself in this thing too.
You can say now, or you can say like any other point, but do you feel like, when do you feel like Live2 has moved the fastest?
That's a really interesting question, because Live2 moved the fastest with the least amount of depth in the very beginning.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
the numbers grew the fastest, and then it grew just as fast with a little bit more depth when the Numb Little Bug and AG Club show happened, but like I didn't know enough of what it was yet at the time. And now it's like it's moving the slowest out of ever in terms of like numbers, but that's because I've spent so much time understanding what it is at the roots, and like now it's like when those things really align, because like now it's a force when this what we are now starts doing that, which we know we're coming up to the time where like if we can push go on these systems, like we can get it there,
and we're close.
We're fucking close, and we can feel it. You know, it seems like it will become much more powerful of a fast movement. So I don't know, there's different ways of which it's moved fast, but I'd say it overall, there's probably some kind of like you know, algorithm you could create that like shows like the what would it be? It'd be like X, like some coefficient X plus some coefficient X.
I'm really good at this stuff.
Yeah, you're a big numbers guy.
Big numbers guy.
But yeah, there'd be a way to like be like, okay, this is how fast, and the strength of it, or I don't know.
It's like measuring. It's like no way. I'm gonna try this. It's like measuring strength versus speed, and it's like it's kind of like the quote. See, I bring it all back to words. Mm-hmm. See, it's kind of like the quote. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's like it's like the greatest form of something moving is when the strength and the speed. It's like the quality and the numbers collide.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you take one and you add the other, but if you don't have both, it can't be that strong. So it's like you need the growth factor and you need the strength factor to line up, and that's when you have something real.
It's like building all these little hills, and it's like right now the hill that we're building. It's like when you built the original TikTok one. It's like the numbers were there. Good night, Mario.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you, bro. This never happened
now
before.
It's just two crazy fools in the garage.
Schizophrenia. Nightmare.
Until the sun comes up, baby.
That's never happened. That's crazy.
I love it.
But it's like so there was the point where like you were building the original TikTok, and like that was you building a hill without a lot of ground to stand on.
Yeah.
And then it was like there was you building the early stage of the production company, and same thing. It was like or the early stage of the artist development company, and it was like same thing. It was like you building like this hill with like not a lot of room to stand on. And now it's like with the network, because of the things that you've learned, what we're building has foundation.
Yeah.
And it's like when that foundation gets high enough and like the people are begin to see it, that's when it gets exciting.
Yeah. There's not a lot of things out there that are both sturdy and built on this like compounding effect of planning for it and have had that reach. And it's like the second you have both of those things, because there's a lot of things right now that have reach, but they're so feeble, and they like nobody knows where they're going. They don't know the vision for the whole thing. So it's like you have to, as an individual, you have to realize that the thing that everybody is chasing is the wrong thing right now. Like everybody is chasing the thing that is just the momentum. And I've seen it happen to so many people where they have to go through the thing. It even happened to me. It's like I thought that the momentum was the thing in the beginning. I tried to set up something to get it or to achieve that. I did, and then I realized that's not the foundational thing that needs to matter right now. And I had to like let that ego, push that ego to the side, and like, you know, it sucks like having people be like, if they don't understand like the groundwork that I'm trying to put into these things, be like, oh, why do you not just like make TikToks anymore and like keep doing that? Like clearly that was working, and like
that to me is so like ugh.
Yeah, it's
that sucks.
It the only thing that gets hurt is my ego, but like I had to learn to swallow that, and it's something that like you just have to believe in yourself that the thing that you're working on is the important thing. And like a huge lesson that I've learned is like nobody, not even your heroes, know the answer to anything really.
Yes,
like they don't know
100%.
your situation that you're in. And so even, if Yes Theory, even now, like the only way that they would be able to like really offer real advice for what we're doing is if they were in this garage every day of the week, like, or 2 days a week
100%.
with us, building these things and understood as much as you do. Like the only people that I really take advice from are the internal people, because nobody else outside has like enough of a perspective to understand the elements that we are working with. And so you have to let all other opinions go on it, and like you have to build a team that you really trust, that like understands and cares about the elements that are going into it. And then you have to have good enough taste to know which of their opinions like really, really hold weight and which ones don't. And like you kind of have to be the filter and the shaper of those things, and like make sure that everybody feels heard, but also make sure that the thing that you guys are building is successful.
And even the act, for sure. And even the act of that is so like even the act of that is so
conducive to awkward situations. Like, and but what's cool about it is, like, I mean, it's, to bring it back to Live2, it's like, what's so cool about that idea is that even those awkward situations and getting past them are conductive to that yes theory idea of pushing past things that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, one of the something that's very uncomfortable is trying to explain to somebody something that doesn't exist yet, and knowing that there's a chance that they're mocking you.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that there's a chance that they're so confused and don't get this at all.
Yeah.
Like that, that is conducive to a lot of uncomfortable emotions, but like pushing past that is the only way to get people to really buy in, and only if like 1 out of 20 of them understand it or buy in, those are the ones that actually matter and will actually stick around for a long time.
Yeah. That's interesting. There are definitely like sometimes awkward situations that arise out of stuff where somebody, because like the conversion to getting internal people to understand what everything is like takes months, and like everybody's got their own things that they want to build, which is totally fine, and that's part of the point. But like everybody has their wants and needs. You really have to be so in tune with what everybody's goals really are to like and that's, I think, one of the only reasons that I'm able to build a team in this time period where we don't have, because money is not the most motivating factor. It's a necessary factor to live, but it only goes so far. Like, especially in art, like most artists are not motivated by money. Yeah, and like but they are motivated by eating though. Yeah, eating and paying rent is the bare minimum they're motivated by very often. Definitely. And so it's that, plus then being able to like sit in a room and like when there's 7 people in here, I know the ins and outs of each of their relationships with each other, what they think about the other person, what is going on with them at home, what they're like, how close they are to making ends meet, how much they're struggling right now, what their passions really are, what their goals are, and how all of those things intertwine with each other. So like any given conversation holds different elements to it that like I subconsciously am always thinking like, how do I make sure that this team is as coherent as it possibly can be? And I think that's what people don't get about leadership. It's like actually I take that back. People understand that about leadership if they're building a corporation. You don't have to be emotionally vulnerable and in tune them, but to build something like this, it's like you have to have like genuine love for each other. You have to actually care. Yeah. You have to actually give a shit about the person next to you and the thing they're building together, and believe in them and believe in what they're doing, the things they say. You can't do this and not have that. Right. It's like, and that is so often contrary to this like toxically masculine idea of leadership that I think we were taught. So, well, not us individually, but like our generation was taught so much with like the rise of some of these corporations and stuff. It's like often like you see like ostracized versions of it in things like Wolf of Wall Street, but it's like the kind of leadership that really, really does shine through is that bit of emotional vulnerability. It's like I've always thought like, to me, and this is kind of a different topic, but like to me, the men that I look at most and I admire most and I look up to most are the ones that are able to be emotionally vulnerable, because that to me is strength. Yeah. And like in the eyes of the former, so often that is the opposite of strength. In the eyes of the former, like showing weakness is the opposite of strength. Yeah. To me, I truly believe that showing weakness is the best example of strength that is possible, especially in a culture where men are peddled that is makes you weak and vulnerable. There's actually, this is very similar and I think part of the same lane. I don't exactly know the exact way that this fits in, but it's part of the same train of thought, I think. A huge thing that I've kind of been wrestling with and recognized is I don't know, I call it like the 99-to-1 kind of mentality, where it's like the masses and the thing out there that is very topical that controls everything is the 99, but those people typically prescribe to a different, like a more mob mentality mindset that is controlled by the noise, and the noise is that thing that like the algorithm is pushing, and that that these larger factors are controlling, usually for like capitalistic or personal gains, and through vanity and like I don't know. You see it all across society, both in business, in male mindsets, and female mindsets, especially in Los Angeles. Like there's a lot of that. But then there's the 1% of people that can take a step back, look at these things, and look at like these very topical things. And it's also very apparent in art and the way that artists are moving now too. Like,
Yeah.
the noise is controlling what artists are doing stuff purely to go viral, but the results of those things clearly show that like that is not where the strength truly lies. It lies in the people like the AG clubs of the world that, you know, you've told me stories of how they are just good people and like have hand by hand built good things with other good people, and like maybe they have way less monthly listeners than somebody who would do the other side of
But
things.
we were sitting over there watching that fucking Flogna stream an hour ago, and we would not do the same thing for Drake.
Yeah. And like Drake is like a whole different thing, but like there obviously there's just so many people like pushing this. What?
Public safety alert. LA City downtown. The I-10 freeway downtown will be closed indefinitely due to damage from a major fire.
Oh, I saw that this morning. That there was like 2 pallet like companies that like caught on fire or something like that.
I just got like one of the emergency alerts.
Yeah, I got it too. Damn. That's crazy.
Anyway, fire.
So
You're saying that there's examples that aren't Drake. Those are what you're saying, obviously.
Yeah. Because I mean, he sells out stadiums.
Yeah, it's a different story.
This is a different thing. But yeah, I think that then there is this 1%, and you see it across. It's just good people being good people to other individuals, and you can really recognize. Like, I believe that winning over one good person in believing in you is better than winning over those 99 other people that like are going to bounce off the walls and not. This is so intangible, it's hard to like really describe, but like there are very clearly people that are social climbers that are going to like claw other people down in order to try and crawl upwards.
Yes.
And
100%.
the world is plagued with that. It's everywhere, and like everybody, it's really hard to believe in yourself when 99% of people are doing that, and you look at it and you're like, okay, they're the ones with 10 million views on TikTok.
They're winning.
The ones,
Maybe I should do that.
They're the ones doing this. But then you meet those people behind the scenes and they're sad as fuck, and they like things are falling apart. Their relationships with other people are terrible. They're continuing to get into drama. They're like it's time after time, like the behind the scenes of those things is definitely not the right thing.
Yes.
And so like it's really hidden behind the scenes because those people are through Instagram and through TikTok, they're showing these like very small highlight clips of these things that they're working on, but it's just not real. It's not truthful. And those 1% of people that can swallow their pride and be like that, those vanity things, those numbers, those the way that I look in this thing, the whatever it is that don't matter truly in reality, they recognize that, they operate that way, and they treat others and they seek out others who think that way too. That's where the real shit is made. And then, that spreads to everyone, because the second that something real is made that like good people get involved with, they can make something that stands the test of time, that builds a legacy that like continues on.
And that's something I think I understood early, but not super early. And I think I got lucky. Yeah. Like I really think like one thing I've gotten very lucky with is being really shitty at going viral, like being really bad at making things that like a large amount of people care about. Yeah. Like I got very lucky at that early, because I think like I never fell into the pit trap of like having to like having all these people watching but no foundation. Yeah. I think the way that I've been able to build things is like a very, very different way, and definitely from the ground up, but it's definitely looking up right now in a way that I'm very excited about. And I think like that doesn't happen if like I start and people are watching. Yeah. Like this right here needed to start as like a shitty Instagram blog. It had to. There's no other way it could have functioned.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, you're right. Like all the conversations that we're having over everything is like we need to find a way to not have to care if a video gets 10 million views. Yes. Like that is not the thing. And so I think you have a question that leads to the broadcast night thing. Possibly.
Oh yeah, just talk about broadcast night.
Yeah. So
that's my question.
So because the very sad truth, and we're not people that swallow sad truths very easily. We look for things that are better truths that are hidden beneath the layer that maybe other people don't look for.
Believe it, truth is subjective to a certain degree.
Yeah.
If you truly believe that life is malleable, not all truths are truths.
Nice. I like that one.
Bars.
Bars. And so one truth, one reality, one pocket of reality that everybody is stuck in is this need to go viral in this play in this lottery. And it's not very conducive. Like the art not algorithm slogan really personifies our frustration with that, and it has for me since the beginning. And over the course of the last 6 months or so, we've started to realize, like, hey, if everybody's chasing going viral and it's not building anything real, then why are we doing that when we should be figuring out how to build something real? And even if 1 million people aren't going to see it right now, we do it in a way where 500 people are going to really fucking care at a time, and then 500 more people, and whatever it is. And so we've kind of been...
It's like changing the conversion rate.
Yeah. We've really been actively seeking that out. And there's, in this one pocket, the social media pocket, there's so much noise and stuff that, like, people can swipe past the Mona Lisa without blinking an eye. And it's like, how in the world were you...
That's a great anecdote, yeah.
How in the world where you can swipe past the Mona Lisa without blinking an eye am I supposed to make something that stands the test of time? I don't know. And that is, like, a huge problem with art right now. And so, like, there is a counterculture to that. And that is the people that have rejected that is the only way to do something. You know, it is a tool. I'm not saying don't put stuff out on there, but don't bank on that being your main way of getting people to see what you're doing. Don't build your thing inside of that.
Because all the things that seem huge online right now, in reality, they are huge online, but they also have a gigantic force in real life.
Yeah.
Most things.
Yeah. And if they don't, then they're feeble and going to crumble.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So, in so many people being here in this one thing, what we've kind of come to realize recently is there are things that are reminiscent of this past, of like a time when people were in person and when things seemed to matter, and when communities were stronger and people didn't feel so lonely and stuck in their rooms. And, like, you know, Enzo the magazine, to us, we went to that one film festival.
Blew our mind
because there were 300 kids in this one theater that, like, really cared and really got it, and
like, really cared. Yeah.
And, like, we walked away, like, struggling to figure out, in shambles. Just like our minds were blown. We were breaking it down. I'm pretty sure the other people in the car with us
like, shut
hated
the
us.
Fuck off.
We were just obsessing over, like, breaking down how did they get so many real people that are doing cool things and think the way that we do into this one place to care about it. And, like, I was just stuck on it for the next little bit. We got maybe half the way there in that car ride, and, like,
we got like 1/4 of the way there.
And so, I don't know, over the next 24 hours or so, I was, like, continuing to think on it, and I came to this conclusion because I'd also been stuck on this idea of, like, wouldn't it be sick if with one of our artists we refused to release stuff on Spotify and we released only CDs, and, like, we purposely stifled ourselves and, like, release stuff through this other much doper format, even though there's no possibility that, like, a ton of people can care right off the bat. It's like you hold something in your hand and it's real, and, like, it goes against what this other thing is that's, like, destroying art.
Yeah, I believe the words that you used are, there's something very cool about making bad business decisions.
Yes. And actually what's funny is Noah Flores said that about making an album in today's world.
Cool. He's right.
Yeah. And so that quote I've continued to say that since I heard Noah say it.
And I've continued to say it since I heard you say it, so.
Oh, wow. Nice. And now even the 3 people still watching.
Yeah. 2 hours and 50 minutes. Yeah. It's okay. In 5 years, this will have a lot of views, so it'll be cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is going to be a big one for the lore.
Yeah, it's a time capsule moment.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, in like breaking it down, I was like, okay, there's Instagram, there was blogs, and then there were magazines 2 eras ago. Magazines are reminiscent of a time when people got together in person, and, like, it's a physical thing that you hold, and it's not part of this noise and like around the idea where they really deeply care about this one thing. And I know they're not selling more than 100 magazines per thing. Like, that is not their business, but they call themselves a magazine and they really care about it and they build out this world around it.
There's plenty of examples of things like this. Yeah, they exist.
Yeah. And it's like, because of that, it's a much doper format that like proves that they are something real.
Are you familiar with FTP? It's another really good example of this. It's a clothing company. It's called FTP, and like the clothes are cool and all or whatever, but it's like what's really cool about it is the community around it. And it's like when you purchase these clothes, it's like you're subscribing to this identity of these people around you, and it's like you're almost part of this community. It's like that idea of being an exclusive club, and this is like a business practice that tons of people have like brought into play, but it's like almost been forgot about in the internet age.
And I think that, like, I don't know, I quickly called Dante because I realized with what you were doing with Above the Bridge, like, and the crossover between you and Enzo is a bit more clear than Live2 and Enzo at the time. Like, there was like kind of 2 steps to get to the point where I came up with the idea for Live2. But for you, like, looking around here at your show posters and having you had told me the story of like how much you care about the story behind the scenes and everything, and like, you know, you've always had this idea for the comic book, but I think it was like in telling you this thing and then being like, and then there's this idea, because I was like, here's why I think the magazine thing worked for them, and here's how it might apply to Above the Bridge with the comic book, and like, you have to care about the comic book as much as you care about throwing the shows, and it is the thing.
It's
like,
the thing.
That is the thing. And everything else is sick because that is the thing.
Yeah.
And then I was really frustrated that I came up with the dope idea with you. And I was like, now where's our idea? I was just jealous that you had it now. And so then I spent the next couple hours thinking about the Live2 side of things, and that's when it hit me that Live2 is trying to be a television broadcast network in a time when broadcast television is dead. There used to be this culture around MTV and other similar things. Like, we'll use MTV as an example, though, where the Michael Jackson music video would come on, the Thriller music video. And my mom told me this story of when she was a kid, and that Thriller music video would come on, like 10 people would gather around the television set and watch this thing in front of them. It's like a miniature event right there happening in front of you, and it's like a community building thing, which now we have these things. We're stuck in our room, we're doom scrolling, like, and nobody else saw that thing that you saw. And it's like very, you know, you might send it to one person through, and that's interesting. I haven't thought about that before. Like the chats on there, sending it to one person is our way of still like connecting with people over a shared moment.
It's like us trying to recreate that, but it's like we can't recreate that because, to be honest with you, bro, like, I love all my friends, but the ones that are doom scroll fuckton and send me like 9 Instagram reels at once, I don't watch them. I just open the DM, like all the messages, and say haha, and then close them. Like, I'm not watching those, respectfully. Like, that's like 3 minutes out of my life, and I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. And so while we're all stuck in our rooms, and we're only in this position because of everything else that we've done, but we now know a lot of the really, really cool up-and-coming directors and artists and DPs and storytellers and bloggers or whatever it is, that are doing cool shit, but because everything is so overpopulated online, there's nothing that represents those people. There's nowhere to showcase those things anymore. And like, you know, these beautiful pieces of art are just being scrolled past. And so that, plus the idea that we are basically building programming out of these shows, and we've always talked about it as if it's a TV network that we're trying to build. It's like, okay, how do we take this thing, and instead of doing it every single day as a television broadcast network, because like broadcast TV is dead, like, let's do it once a night or once a month in a movie theater, and gather, you know, the dopest things that we did that month and the dopest things coming out of the scene in LA, which all of our friends made really, really cool things, screen them in a very coherent, like, well put together, and in between these things there's bits come, like SNL type bits out of our office here that we're screening, and also like stuff in person at this thing, and it's basically this big, it's as if we took the Thriller music video on a TV set and made it 100 times bigger and had 100 times more people there, and it's this once a month just crazy community that comes together and like finally represents something where like algorithms have nothing to do with it, and it's only hand curated, and because of that it feels so real, and it's something that's so forgotten. And like by making these things now for this, we no longer have to think about editing stuff for the algorithm, which means we can let go of having to make stuff go viral and once again make stuff that we really believe in. And I believe in making that choice while we might be giving up the ability to go viral on YouTube or whatever it is. I believe that through the power of this local community and sharing stuff by hand, because these things still will come out on YouTube in those places, but like I would much rather have 500 people that saw it in a theater that want to go home and share it by hand with their friend than the algorithm pick it up and get 1 million views. Like it needs to be that hand by hand driven thing.
It's like we're solving a very, very new problem that nobody understands as a problem yet.
Yeah.
It's like we're actively, like, there was a moment where like what you just described is what people just used to do.
Yeah.
There was no name for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't broadcast.
That was the only way to grow anything.
Only way to grow anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like 10 years ago. Then the internet comes along, and like for the long time, the internet becomes the only way to do things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then we kind of morph back into this balance of the two. But now it's like post TikTok.
Yeah.
People are trying to do something that it doesn't work anymore because it changed so rapidly. It worked one day and didn't work the next. So it's like then people entirely forgot about the live side of things. So it's like we enter this weird culture where it's like the thing that was the obvious answer 10 years ago is still the obvious answer, but nobody thinks that because they've had their attention diverted by this app.
It's like the algorithms have become so advanced and fracture society so much into these echo chambers that there's not enough real things built out unless you somehow, if you can sit on top of that meta and like Mr. Beast has 12,000 people come to his store opening because he sits on top of this thing, and it's massive enough to where it still has that pull. But like
even if like 1 out of every 1,000 Mr. Beast fans like him enough to go to a live event, it doesn't matter. It's still fucked out of people.
And so it's like there is a much more tried and true way of doing this, which everybody else has taken their eyes off of, which makes it way sicker, which is why it's the counterculture movement. And art is always built out of counterculture movements. Like true art is always a rejection of the thing that is plaguing society on the other side. And so it's like that's what's fucking sick now, and that's why we recognize it, and that's what we're going to be doing because it brings real meaning to people. So that is broadcast night.
Yeah, and it's like it gets to this place too where it's like it starts as that, but then like this thing tours and it becomes larger than that, and it becomes like it's strange because like when you first came up with this idea, what I equated it to was like I came up like idolizing and obsessed with the idea of 90s punk music in the Bay Area, and 924 Gilman Street being the epicenter of that, and everything coming in and out of Gilman. It's like if you were doing anything in Bay Area punk music in the 90s and the early 2000s, like you were doing it at Gilman. So it's like it's like that was a physical embodiment of a bigger cultural movement. It existed like there existed Green Day and Operation Ivy and Rancid, but it was like there existed Gilman, and that was the scene, and that mattered. And it was like you went there to experience this thing that you could only experience there, and you could experience nowhere else. And that is what broadcast night in my eyes has to be. Broadcast night you can't understand online. You can't.
No, I literally, people have asked, I've had like 3 people ask me if we would film it and put it out online, and I'm like, I
like my idea.
What was your idea again? Oh, only show the audience. Yeah, that's fucking sick.
Yeah. I think we do it. It's like that.
Yeah. I will probably film it just to show my parents.
That's
like
sick.
I will have
we should fly them out.
Yeah. I will have it to like show my, I will probably get my parents there and other people that are very important to me. But yeah, I think I will film it, but only to show people by hand if they couldn't make it, but it will not be posted anywhere.
I like that.
Yeah. And I think, because you just got to be there to experience it.
But it is dope to have a hand to show people, like, for pitching and whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe we put in like the Discord or something like that of like.
The Discord's been so fun to figure out the past couple of days.
Yeah. It's cool. When we turned it on and there were 15 people chatting in there and they were all like, it's been fucking cool to see like the fans of our artists become fans of everybody inside of Live2.
McClain restarted the Discord and didn't realize that nobody had speaking permissions until I told him that nobody had speaking permissions, and he just thought nobody was fucking with it.
Yeah. Literally, I'd been so sad for about a week after starting this thing, and Dante was like, yeah, I can't talk in the Discord. I was like, wait, really? I go in there and turn it on, and all of a sudden, within 5 minutes,
It's
like there are 20
flooded.
people
Like, well, we can
spamming
talk
stuff in there.
Yeah. It was so funny. I wonder if they got a notification that said like you could talk now or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe it was because I think once we sent a notification in there,
Oh,
people
they
went
saw it.
and then
I see.
started-
And they're like, oh shit, like we can talk.
Yeah.
How strange is it like building these things in real time and then doing things like this where you're telling the story of it? And I know you sent a message in the Discord actually this morning, I think, or the other day, talking about like potentially restarting the Live2 show.
Yeah.
So I know you're thinking, and we've talked about it too, but I know you're
Yeah.
thinking about this actively right now. It's like what we're doing right now is really cool in the way that it exists and everything that's happening out of this office right now. And it's like, how do you balance the worlds of focusing on doing it, but then also focusing on talking about doing it at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah, the idea for the Live2 show, and we ran 8 episodes of it, and it wasn't sustainable enough yet to justify doing it instead of some of these other shows that like need to establish the fan base first and everything. But it's such a personal like thing for me because like being a storyteller at heart and loving the come up story and like knowing that we're living a come up story and wanting to capture that and also wanting to like the Live2 show at the time it was running was like nobody else cared about it besides the people working there. But
That was enough.
Yeah, because 20 people like working with us like were characters inside of it. They got to, instead of me having to go, it was like our newsletter essentially, but it was like in the format of a show. It was sick.
It was like a youth camp, like you were like indoctrinating people.
So yeah, I mean the biggest asset that Live2 ever has is our ability to tell our own story and have people care about it as we're doing it. But it is like so difficult to balance because in order to have a story to tell, you have to do shit. In order to do shit, you have to be able to focus on it. In order to focus on it, you can't focus on telling your story. So
And that's
like,
the trap that I run into out of lack of resources. It's like I want to tell the story of Above the Bridge, but it's like if I do that, Above the Bridge doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's like me trying to get to a place where it's like,
right.
and the podcast helps with that because I can actively talk about the way things are progressing in real time. But it's like, how do I get to a place where it's like I can like. And I had somebody approach me with this idea that I wish they followed through on. They want to make a documentary about every show.
Yeah.
And I really, really want to do that.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to like
It's difficult.
do the thing and then tell the story
Yeah.
of doing the thing. It's you don't have that many resources.
Yeah, I mean that's talking. Also, I remember this popped in my head earlier. Didn't say it. Now there's 2 things I want to say, but one of the big moments that defined Live2 recently for the new people involved was this 24 hours to throw a show.
Oh, I didn't know if you want to talk about it or not.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that to me was the equivalent of like the showcase number 3 of like that. Now there's a new cast of people that are working behind the scenes. They haven't seen what we're capable of and what this community can do yet. We come together in this garage and over the course of 24 hours, like throw probably one of the dopest shows that we possibly could have.
Yeah.
And you know,
One of the coolest days of my life.
yeah, it was fucking sick.
Yeah. And the amount of people who have just approached me about it has been crazy. So I can't imagine how many people approached you about it.
Yeah, it's been very cool, and it was all just off the strength of like us believing in ourselves and doing that. And so, and obviously, you know, the thing that came along with that is making a documentary about throwing a show in 24 hours and throwing a show in 24 hours. Like there are 2 sides to that thing.
Yeah.
It's not just throwing the show. We also have to think very actively. Like we were simultaneously shooting our intro and shooting certain bits while also having to pull together in the quickest amount of time that we possibly could an insane lineup that represented us well. And like
It was so crazy.
it was very crazy. And then to add on top of that, the thing that we just did with Timmy Skelly was go to a ranch. We could only afford to have the ranch for 72 hours. They had to write. We made a documentary about writing an album over the course of 72 hours while they also had to write the album over 72 hours.
It's all meta.
And yeah. and do the live recording of them actually performing it, and then that is going to be the album itself. So it's like everything that Live2 does seems to be in this lane of like, we're doing something dope and we're telling the story at the same time of doing that dope thing, and because we're telling the story, means that we can do more dope things in the future, and more people will care about it the next time we do it.
It's all meta, and it's such a strange world, but it's like you fundamentally cannot have one without the other. Like you can't do one of the things and then not have the other thing.
Yeah.
But it's so fucking weird because it's like that has been like the hardest thing, I think. And I think the series that the 24-hour concert's a part of, what's so cool about it is that like it actively accomplishes both those goals. It's like that idea does accomplish both those goals no matter what, you know?
Yeah, I can't wait until we're 40 episodes into that and there's 1,000 people that wanted to come to every single one of those.
That's crazy.
And it's just like, dude, think about the crazy things that we will be able to do.
I just had a weird thought too. It's crazy too. Like all the people that are talking to you about it right now and talking to me about it right now, that's amazing. But also like they only have one half of it.
Yeah.
They don't even know that it's a documentary.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Wait until we can send that to them. They're so bought in that everybody's just like talking about it now. It comes to the next one.
And then they come to broadcast like it's the whole thing.
Fucking crazy.
Next question. If I imagine this has been a difficult thing ego-wise to get to the place, and I resonate with this, so this is what I want to ask you. When someone asks you, what is Live2, what do you say? And how have you gotten to the place where you know how to answer that? And do you know how to answer that? And do you want to know how to answer that?
The first thing I always say is, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
It's like, you got 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 57 seconds.
Hey, you can't look at that. You're not supposed to know that's there.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a slightly painful question to get sometimes, because it does represent the fact that like we're not at the point where people can just get it, and there's always going to be like the outskirts people that I run into that hear that we're doing something and they're like, what is it? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know. How do you describe this? I usually default to a much more simple answer than it actually is, and like there's very certain people that like I'm actively seeking out that need to know the full story.
Yeah.
And I tell them the full story, but I've accepted the fact that the general public will just have to slowly over the course of the next 10 years or 5 years or 20 years, whatever it is, get to the point where people are won over one by one and they fall deep enough into the lore to like understand everything. And like some people will just be fans of Backyard Idol or the Showcase series or whatever it is, or scene analysis, and like not even look deeply enough to like understand all of it. But every single property that we do is its own funnel to like people coming in. Like, maybe the 10% of people that are biggest fans of those shows become fans of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I just have to accept that there's different levels of like people's interactions with the things that we're building, and like, maybe people's only interaction ever is they're going to see one music video that we made for one artist that's not even a Live2 artist, but like that's the thing. Or in the future we make a movie that like goes on to be featured at Sundance or whatever, it does its movie thing. And people are a fan of that one movie, but they don't understand all this other stuff. And like,
that's okay.
Yeah, it's just, swallowing that pride of wishing everybody could get it and just accepting that there's going to be a small percentage of people that do. And those are the people that I wish everybody was, but not everybody can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could tell 18-year-old McClain one thing, what is that one thing?
I would tell him you're right. Like, you are correct. That's it. Like, I think he would know what I was trying to say. If I could just say one thing, I'd be like, you're right in the way that you're thinking about things, but nobody's gonna tell you that. You're gonna have to figure that out yourself. I don't know. It's probably a good thing that I'm not able to tell myself, because I think my curiosity as to whether or not I was right is part of the reason that I was able to keep going for so long, and like still am. Like I know that I'm right now on like the why of what we're doing and what it means and whatever, but I don't know if I'm right in the current way that I'm thinking about it. Like I now know that a version of me in the future is going to be right. And I don't think that I could say that without a doubt in the past. But yeah, now I'm at a point where like I understand enough to know it's undeniable. And so I don't know. I guess if I was going to tell him one thing, it would be that. Yeah.
McClain Portis. We've been talking for 3 hours and 12 minutes.
Yep.
That's crazy. I that is the longest podcast we've ever done.
And I could keep going for fucking 6 more hours.
I genuinely feel like we could keep going.
We might have to do a part 2 about a specific topic.
Yeah,
time.
maybe we should just start doing topical ones. We could just do them every couple weeks.
We could start. I'd be down to figure out in the near future, once we get some of these shows off the ground, that like Live2 podcast, it's more like specific business sides of things or specific topics.
That'd be fun.
Diving into.
I would love to do that. And even outside of that, I would love to just have you on Music Matters every couple months just for an update episode. That'd be fun.
Sick.
Yeah. But we have a Backyard Idol episode to set up for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it's not
to set up for tomorrow.
Yeah, we're setting up for it tomorrow. It's the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got plenty.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man.
I love you very much.
Love you too, man.
You've changed my life and the way that I look at the world in more ways than one, and I can't thank you enough for it. And I cannot wait to watch this episode in 5 years. I'm almost more excited to watch it in 5 years than I am for it to come out.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you have equally changed my life and my perspective on these things. There's very few people like. Pertinence is one person who has also taken as deep of a chance on me and like really looked as deep into it. But you are of very, very few people that have looked that deep and like taken the time to understand it and care about it. And also like your background and the way that you see things and the way that you have been building and like what this space is, what this house is, the other people that you guys have like talked to and what you guys represent is a huge motivational factor as well from me, and just like the exact, maybe from different angles in the way that we're approaching things, but like the core of it is the same, and that's why this is so cool.
It's like exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy weird part. And like the way that our worlds came together is so random and strange, but I think it was meant to happen.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I completely agree.
All right. Longest podcast ever. Thank you, brother.
Let's go.
Tell them.
Very fitting.
I say this at the end of every single one, but like this one's gonna be silly because if they watch this, but like tell them where they can find Live2 and maybe plug something that you don't usually plug. Like what is something that you could not something you could plug that you don't plug always.
The Art Not Algorithms playlist. How about that? One?
I like that.
Yeah, find good music on the Art Not Algorithms playlist. That we're trying to bring something back to the human spirit of discovering artists the old way, and something that perhaps means a little bit more than finding them through the algorithm. And yeah, I mean, we've been saying the name Live2 for long enough, so if you don't want to go seek it out after this, then that's fine. But that's where you find us.
At Live2 Create.
Yep.
Art and Algorithms playlist. All right.
Yep.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it.
All right. Music matters.